Good evening, everybody. Good evening. It's just afternoon. I'm thinking way ahead, aren't I? 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Good afternoon. Let's start that over. You know, we should probably just start. I mean, come on, let's just do it all over again. I hate it when it happens.
This is take two, and good luck with your performance.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's 7 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I am Brian Wilson. I am your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive. I mean, you can't start on that note. You can't start off rough.
It would have gone downhill from there.
You know, I used to work with an audio guy, and he said when he was a disc jockey, he'd been a disc jockey a lot of years, and this was in Washington, D.C., and he said if he had a bad start to a show, he would leave the record running. He would go outside the building and come back in and start the whole thing over again, just reboot himself.
Oh,
and he said, and
yeah.
that's how I cleared it. You know, I just said, I'm starting over. I'm starting fresh. And, you know, you just can't have a rough start to a show like that. So anyway, we're glad that you're here with us. Listen, there's no better place to be than right here beside your warm and toasty radio, because I'm telling you, it's cold outside, although, you know, it's the air temperatures are right around freezing, which is, you know, better than we have had. But boy, do we have some concerns about the weather. That dreaded wintry mix is now approaching, and everything has sort of an icy, coat packed, snowpack kind of feel to it beforehand. Then you put rain right at the freezing mark, and I mean, you can have a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, Chris, you said that you saw them applying a lot of chemicals on the way in.
Yeah, well, I saw a lot of salt just being thrown out onto the roads. But, of course, this was on the state highways, not on the interstate. I didn't see any action on the interstate, but I'm sure they're out there as well.
Yeah, so we're going to be checking in just a moment with folks from TDOT to get a lay of the land and find out exactly what they're doing and what they're seeing out there. But, you know, folks, with all due respect, I love and adore each and every one of you, but you don't know how to drive on this stuff. And nobody can drive on ice. Nobody can drive on ice, so be really careful. Don't get out there if you don't have to. Good day to stand by the radio. We got a lot of information that we're going to be sharing with you. And again, we'll get into a report from what TDOT is showing us, and we'll be watching the weather throughout this broadcast today. I told Cabana Wife, I said, you're in for the day. You're not going anywhere. If you need to go outside, then you need to rethink it, because I'm telling you that porch and the back cabana, where the little place where I come, from the house to the studio, that 50 foot commute that I have each day was probably more perilous than it's been in a long time. Mm. So let's all be careful out there. You don't want to fall. You don't want to hurt yourself. It's not worth, nothing that you're going to do probably is going to be worth the risk that you're going to be taking today. So think very carefully before you decide to leave wherever you are. And if you're out and you have to get back home, good luck, because it's going to be tough. We'll get again into it from TDOT in just a moment. Let's move on to this. Today there was a Department of Justice report revealed on the failures at Uvalde. What a tragic thing it was there at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde. Investigation was launched in 2022 to find out what went wrong there and why so many children, 19 children and 2 teachers, died. And Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, was there to recite some of the findings. And it's not anything that we don't already know, really. It's just a reminder of how badly things went there. Here is Merrick Garland, the Attorney General.
At Columbine High School 25 years ago, and the 47 minutes it took for law enforcement to enter that high school marked a major shift in how law enforcement leaders think about responding to mass shootings. It is now widely understood by law enforcement agencies across the country that in active shooter incidents, time is not on the side of law enforcement. Every second counts. And the priority of law enforcement must be to immediately enter the room and stop the shooter with whatever weapons and tools officers have with them. That is the approach responding officers first employed when they arrived at Robb Elementary School. But within minutes of arriving inside the school, officials on scene transitioned from treating the scene as an active shooter situation to treating the shooter as a barricaded subject. This was the most significant failure. That failure meant that law enforcement officials prioritized the protracted evacuation of students and teachers in other classrooms instead of immediately rescuing the victims trapped with the active shooter. It meant that officials spent time trying to negotiate with the subject instead of entering the room and confronting him. It meant that officials asked for and waited for additional responders and equipment instead of following generally accepted active shooter practice and moving toward the shooter with the resources they had. It meant waiting for a set of keys to open the classroom door, which the report concludes was likely unlocked anyway. And it meant that the victims remained trapped with the shooter for more than an hour after the first officers arrived on scene.
I mean, what a failure. They called it cascading failures, which mean that one failure led to another failure. I mean, it could not have gone more wrong than it went at Uvalde. By the way, the investigative team that put this final report together spent 30 days in Uvalde, interviewed more than 200 people from more than 30 organizations, and looked at 13,000 pieces of evidence to come up with this. Now, we look at Uvalde and compare and contrast that to the heroic actions of the Nashville Police Department at the Covenant shooting. The Covenant shooting, as soon as the police officers got on the scene, these heroes knew exactly what they had to do. I guess maybe the failures of Uvalde were fresh in everyone's mind, and they knew that you had to go in quick. And as tragic as it was at the Covenant School, it could have been so much worse had it not been for good training beforehand on the part of the teachers in that school. They'd had some active shooter training. And the remarkably courageous actions of the police officers. When you see the video, when you look at the video of the police officers' body cams as they were going into that building and how quickly they responded, it was textbook. It was a thing of beauty. And a very bad day, they did exactly what they were supposed to do, and their training paid off. If there is one criticism I have of Covenant, it's not the actions of the officers, because when they got there and they went right to it. I have some concerns, and I've always had some concerns about, and it's never been discussed very much, the response time. And that's not on the officers. That's on the administration of the police department, because they didn't have, I don't think, enough people on the street. It took a little too long to get there. But once they got there, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. And if we have any failures that we should acknowledge, it's that we did not have enough police officers on the street. We were shorthanded and spread too thin, and response time to get to that school was a little slower than I think many people would like to have had. And that's not to say there wasn't heroism and there wasn't great work on their part, but that really we need to also remember that we could have gotten there a little quicker if we had more people on the street, and that the police department had not been running in a deficit for police officers on the street for some time. And the reasons for that being the case are all on the administration, the former mayor, the police chief, and I would say the Community Oversight Board, which doesn't really want police officers on the street. So we have this report from Uvalde, unimaginable horror and cascading failures, they say, led to what was a horrible, horrible situation. Look, we need to make sure when we get reports like this that we study them and we look at them, but more importantly, that we remember and we are reminded that when when seconds count, the police are still minutes away. And so you have to have a plan. And the best plan is to make sure that your teachers and administrators of schools have the ability to, they've been trained, they know what to do. I'm very excited about something that Senator Mark Pody is pushing. It's a device that every teacher in the state will be able to have with 3 buttons on it. The first button is for, a behavioral problem. It's like a little body cam. You wear it as a teacher, and if somebody acts up in class, you hit the first button, and there is a feed of it that goes out to the SRO and the principal, and you have evidence of exactly what happened. The second button is for medical emergencies and connects you to 911 and gets an ambulance going directly right away. And the third one is what we had in Uvalde and at Covenant School. An active shooter situation, so that police arriving on the scene will be able to know really what they're dealing with, and they'll have video feeds going in and coming out of the school. And I think that's a wonderful idea, and it's something that I think the state legislature is going to pick up. And if we do that, we'll be on the cutting edge of making our children safe here in Tennessee. We need SROs, and I'm glad that we're working hard to make sure that that's available. But I still think we have some real cracks in our defense here. And this event in Uvalde gives us a moment to sort of think back about Uvalde, to think back on Covenant School, and to make sure that it's at top of mind that we must keep our children safe in a school environment, and that we need to be doing everything we possibly can. It also reminds me that it would be very helpful for the legislator, as they take on some of these difficult issues, if we had access to the dang Covenant manifestos, to know a little bit more about what was going on there in the mind of that shooter. Why is that still held up? So there's no excuse for it being held up this long. The public has a right to know. The different school systems around the area have a right to know, and the legislature and the governor, they need to know so they can craft legislation that might actually be able to help. And the idea that this is being held from us is still an abomination to me. I understand the pain of the families, and I understand that how difficult it must be. But that information should be made public. And we should be able to see it so we can know how to prevent it from happening again. What was going on in the mind of that shooter? It troubles me that we don't yet know and don't yet have access to that information. I understand some of it may need to be redacted. I get that, but not all of it. And what was going on in the mind of that shooter is an important piece of information that the public needs to know so that we can prevent it from happening again. But if we don't know, it's hard to predict and try to come up with the right solutions, because we don't know what that person was thinking. We don't know what they were doing. We don't know exactly what was the motivation. All those things important into knowing how to stop it from happening again. 20 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. King and Associates Insurance in Brentwood has been in business over 25 years as an independent agency, and man, I'm telling you, that's what you want. You don't want one of those big internet companies. No, they listen, have you ever had insurance from one of those folks? Bad news. It's just bad news. You can't get anybody on the line, and what they have done is they have given you whatever product they have. They take that square peg and they shove it into the round hole, and it's not right. Now, if you have an independent agency, they can shop around. They can find a policy that truly meets your needs, that gives you the most bang for your buck, and that's what you want, right? And if you call this number, 615-329-8121, you're not going to reach a call center. You're not going to get a recording that says, well, stand by, your phone call is important to us, when it's really not important to you. No, you're going to get an actual person who will take care of your problem or get you to someone who can. They are the kings of the multi-policy discount. 20, 25, 30, 35%. Huge savings. So get your royal review with King & Associates Insurance. Log on to tkinginsurance.com. That's King Insurance & Associates. Royal treatment and great rates.
We take a look at those roads as a wintry mix is falling over Nashville. An update on Houthi targets in Yemen, and a man's body was found in Fall Creek Falls State Park. We'll let you know all about it. 3:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 25 minutes now past the hour. There's Mac Morey in the newsroom. Good to have you there. We'll join us again later for Mac Morey's wide world of sports at 5:25, and of course does the news for us as well. And there's Chris Webber in the control room pushing all the blinky buttons, and glad that he's there he's still wearing his Georgia Bulldog stuff.
Of course, man.
Yeah. And listen, we're really worried about the weather out there. The winter weather advisory is in effect, and we have that really dangerous situation where you still have snowpack. You still have, roads that aren't particularly well cleared in some areas. And then you get the sort of a freezing rain falling on top of it. It could be a really deadly combination. Joining us from TDOT to talk more about this is Rebecca Hammonds. And I'd like to know, hey, Rebecca, thanks for joining us. And number one, what are you seeing out there right now? And what are the concerns? Where are the concerned areas here in Middle Tennessee?
Hi. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Right now we have our crews out monitoring, checking road temperatures. And the good news is we're seeing road temperatures that are around 30 or higher, which is very positive, right? So we're, of course, concerned of that refreeze, but when we see tenths around that mark, especially with all of the treatment that's still on the roads, it's going to be able to do its job. So that means that even though it may stick or start to stick, that brine and salt that we've been pouring onto it for the past few days, that'll be able to really work. Our goal today has been to clear that snowpack that you mentioned. We know that there are some secondary state routes that we really had to tackle today to get fully passable and clear. And what we didn't want is for this whatever falls now to refreeze on top. So we feel good in most areas that those secondary routes and, of course, our primaries are definitely passable, if not clear for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, we in Tennessee don't see this all that often. And so,
Right.
like a lot of the northern states, they have a lot more equipment and they have a lot more capability, but it's because they have to. It doesn't make a lot of economic sense for us to have all of these, the same kind of level of equipment for the number of times we have situations like it. Wouldn't be a very good expenditure of taxpayer dollars. But nonetheless, you take these limited abilities that you have and you get out there. And the first job is to get the primary roads as clear as you can possibly make them. And then move on to the secondary and even what they call tertiary roads. I get all that. Are there any areas where you have concerns right now where it's just a little worse than perhaps you expected it to be, or that there people are having a bit more trouble?
At this point, those trouble spots are much better. They're in much better shape. I think yesterday and even the day before, warned people of areas in Williamson County and Macon County. In Macon, we were telling people about State Route 141. We were having truckers get stuck and just not able to get out. And then in Williamson County, we couldn't get people off of some of 840 and some of State Route 246. So thankfully, we've gotten to those areas and they're in much better shape. But, those are going to, if we have a refreeze, those are going to be trouble spots again. So those are two areas definitely to be aware of.
All right. Well, Rebecca Hammonds with TDOT, thank you so much for joining us. We greatly appreciate it and giving us an update. As we prepare for the dreaded, do we have the, I don't know if I still have it. I don't have, here it is. The dreaded wintry mix, because it's scary. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and it can fool you too. That's the thing.
That's right.
Yeah,
the dreaded wintry mix. All right, it's now at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
3:30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 33 degrees and that winter weather advisory in effect until 9 a.m. tomorrow, as that wintry mix that you heard all about just now still falling over Nashville, creating the danger for those icy, slick roads. Channel 4's Brendan Tierney is out on the streets right now and tells us how conditions are faring.
A lot is depending on if you're on those main roads or the smaller back roads, which we're on right now. We're in the Sylvan Park area of Nashville right now, where the roads are definitely still covered with snow and ice. And there are some spots that are actually pretty slippery, where our braking system's having to kick in as we're coming up to stop signs like this one. But overall, across Nashville, we've been seeing that roads are actually better right now than they were earlier in the day. This rain's actually helping melt the snow a little bit, but you do want to watch out for those slick spots, with the temperatures hovering right about the freezing mark right now.
And looking at some closures, Wilson County Central Pike is now closed due to conditions and crash issues in that area. We got a full weather forecast and a traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. The U.S. has conducted another round of strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen. Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary Sabrina Singh says today's strike was carried out on 2 missile launchers in a Houthi-controlled area that posed an imminent threat to commercial shipping vessels in the Red Sea. This is the 5th strike in the U.S. that's been carried out on the Houthis in the past week, and the 2nd in just a matter of hours.
What we took, the actions that Central Command took last night, was to destroy missiles that could be launched and that we're preparing to launch either towards U.S. Navy ships that are in the region, that are in that waterway, or other commercial vessels. It wouldn't say that there has been a change in assessment or anything like that. They took the action that they did because these missiles were going to launch and could cause harm to innocent mariners.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Let's talk about Busy Bee HVAC and plumbing. These are the folks who you want to call if you wake up in the morning and you don't have any heat. Or maybe you've had some bad plumbing issues because of the freezing weather. One way or the other, call the number I would call, 615-775-7833. They'll buzz right over to your house and get you fixed up and get your situation under control as soon as humanly possible. Listen, one of the ways you avoid having problems like this is to make sure that you do preventative maintenance. And that's what being a member of the Beehive Club is all about. Starts for as little as $99. You get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing, no overtime charges 24/7, and 10% off all repairs. So for satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com. It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air on this Thursday, the 18th day of January. Be careful out there. Road temperatures right around freezing, and this stuff can get really slick in a big hurry. Take abundant care as you're driving or walking, quite frankly. Nobody does well on ice. I mean, you just can't. This is that dreaded, as we like to say, dreaded wintry mix. So be very, very, very careful. A lot of news today focusing on the situation in the border and the ongoing crisis there. But, I mean, there are two lanes to this story. Number one, it's what's going on there, and then the battle in Washington to try to do something about it. As you know, Republicans in the House are standing their ground, and it looks like Republicans in the Senate are sticking with them as well, saying that they're not going to give the president some of the things he wants until he gets serious, absolutely serious, about solving the problem down the border, making the situation better. Let's start first with what's going on there. Number one, Texas, U.S. and legal standoff as state refuses to comply with directive on border access. This is from thehill.com. The government of Texas and the Biden administration are in a legal standoff over a public park along the U.S.-Mexico border, where Texas National Guard soldiers have blocked access to Border Patrol officials. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton on Wednesday repudiated a demand from the Department of Homeland Security to provide Border Patrol officials access to what is known as Shelby Park and Eagle Pass. Because the facts and the law side with Texas, the state will continue utilizing its constitutional authority to defend its territory and will continue defending those lawful efforts in court. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security should stop wasting scarce time and resources suing Texas and start enforcing the immigration laws Congress already has on the books. Now, this comes following a cease and desist letter from the federal government. And they're appealing it to the Supreme Court, saying, hey, well, Texas is not being nice. No, I mean, Texas is doing what Texas needs to do because the federal government is not doing its job. And I am completely supportive. I mean, it is the job of the federal government to protect our borders, but when they don't do it, what are you supposed to do? And let the Supreme Court tackle that one. I'd be happy to have them do that. Because I think that, they will probably come and find that the federal government is not doing what it said it's supposed to do, and that they're changing the law and interpreting the law in a way that Congress did not intend. So there we go. That battle is going on. Another part of the battle is that there's a hearing on Capitol Hill today. Our own Mark Green, Congressman Mark Green, is chairman of the Homeland Security Committee on Capitol Hill, and they are beginning the process of building a case to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security. And he did not show up, by the way, to the meeting today. We now know, according to Green says no American is safe because Mayorkas refuses to enforce the law, which requires him to detain and remove illegal aliens, and has tragically increased crime and endangered public safety across the country. And he cited statistics since fiscal year 2021 that show Border Patrol arrested more than 41,000 aliens with criminal convictions, including more than 15,000 in fiscal year 2023. That's up from just over 4,200 in fiscal year 2019. And the situation is getting bad. Mark Green also says that Mayorkas and the Department of Homeland Security has refused to respond to 173 outstanding congressional inquiries. Mayorkas asking that he fulfill, they wrote him a letter asking he fulfill the 173 outstanding requests from the Committee for Documents, Informations, and Briefings. He's keeping information from the part of our government which has oversight over the executive branch, the legislative branch. The committee sent 51 letters, 41 of which remain either partially or entirely unsatisfied. The department's lack of transparency, says Green, is disconcerting and unacceptable, despite the committee's repeated follow-ups on its letters and efforts to engage the department to prioritize outstanding requests. Now, about the battle going on for funding. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, seems to be holding his ground after a meeting at the White House yesterday where, they were trying to work out some kind of deal. The president wants funding for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. And the Speaker of the House says, not until we secure our own border do we worry about the borders of Ukraine or Israel. We're going to take care of America first. And here's a little bit from the Speaker talking about all of that.
No, I have been very clear from day one, the day I got the gavel. We need certain elements to make sure that the border situation is solved. That means to restrict the flow, not based upon talking points or hyperbole or what Republicans say they want. This is coming from the experts on the ground. We went down there to talk to the people in charge of administering this, the Border Patrol agents, the sheriffs in Texas, the people who live with this crisis every single day. And they have asked us to ensure that this happens. By the way, Caitlin, by one way of example, they say that if the president himself would sign one executive order and reinstate Remain in Mexico, that policy, it could stem the flow by 70%. So I asked President Biden just the other day on the phone, I said, why would you not do that, sir? This would solve a big part of the problem. You have it within your ability to do it.
But they're not doing it. And they don't explain why. This is making a lot of Democrats, by the way, squirm. There was a resolution that was considered on the floor of the House saying, you need to shut down the border, and we want you to do that. And you know what? They got 14 Democrats to cross over and support the Republican resolution. And in interesting places, Colin Allred of Texas, Yadira Caraveo of Colorado, Angie Craig of Minnesota, Henry Cuellar of Texas, Donald Davis of North Carolina, Maine, Texas, Ohio, Nevada, Florida, North Carolina, Alaska, Washington, Illinois. 14 different Democrats sided with Republicans. So there is bipartisan support. And this is sort of what this is. You know what this is right here? This is a test vote. This is the House of Representatives' way of showing to the administration what's likely to happen if they push this thing. That you're going to find that a lot of Democrats are not going to vote with you. And you're going to go, and it also expresses to them what the Speaker of the House has to work with. In other words, when he says, I can't get this passed through my body, he's got a test vote that was taken in the form of a resolution that explains to them in no uncertain terms just exactly what he's up against. So, they're not going to get it. It's not just him saying it. It's actually, you can look and say, well, here's our little test vote, and it didn't go so well for you guys. There are going to be a lot of people who abandon you on this, and Democrats are squirming. By the way, Democrats will be squirming in the Senate as well. Because, they understand the American people have had it over this issue, and they're not very happy as well. Then there is this, and this comes from the Federalist.com. Biden administration caught lying after blaming recent border drownings on Texas. It's not the first time they did it. Remember when they were saying, well, the Border Patrol, the mounted Border Patrol were whipping Haitian immigrants, and there was nothing to that. There were no whips. They were twirling their reins. And any person who's ever, ridden a horse around cattle or around any kind of situation where you're trying to herd, and that's what they were trying to do, herd people from not coming onto American soil, you don't want them to get stepped on by the horse. So you twirl your reins and to sort of help them keep their distance from the horse. And they do that with cattle, and they do it with everything else. I mean, I'm not trying to say that these people are being treated like cattle, but what they were trying to do was something that would protect them from being stomped, which is, a good thing. You don't want people to get stomped. Would you rather they not twirl their reins and get people stomped? So that was just a bunch of hooey, and they stuck by that forever. And then they found out, well, we were wrong. Now the president and his corporate media, according to the Federalists, want you to believe that Texas is responsible for the death of 3 migrants who drowned in the Rio Grande. But Lone Star State law enforcement was not even informed of the river deaths until hours after they happened. How could they have been responsible for them? Under Biden, hundreds of illegal border crossers, migrants have died, many drowning, trying to force their way into the U.S. These tragedies were long ignored by mainstream media. Since the beginning of Biden's record-breaking border crisis, the propaganda press have done nothing but ignore and downplay the role. It's right. It was not until the recent drownings of a migrant mother and 2 children that press outlets took an interest in assigning blame for the raging humanitarian crisis on the southern border. PBS, CBS, the Associated Press, Daily Mail, NBC News, The Guardian, and others charged the Texas National Guard with blocking federal border agents from saving the illegal border crossers. It was the accusation tracked back to the media's allies in the Biden Department of Homeland Security, and they were trying to make the case it was because of this effort by the state of Texas to keep them out of that park. They said they were blocked. They were not blocked. It was not true. It was well, you know my term for it. It was absolute, and it was also, and let's just go ahead and make it the trifecta. It was for them even to suggest that. It was a cheap shot, and by the way, not based in fact. And it's been completely debunked, just like the whipping the Haitians with the whips was debunked. It didn't happen. You know what? I wish they would quit worrying a little bit more about trying to score political points and do a little bit more to try to secure the dang border, because it is causing a real problem in this country. It's causing a humanitarian crisis. It's causing a drug crisis, a human trafficking crisis. And number one, there are people now that are in this country that should not be here. Their first act was to break the law, and they came in and got a piece of paper and were sent on their way. And I'm telling you, every city is now a border city. And it has, I've been told that even here locally, it has had an impact. That it's causing, school systems, for example, to try to figure out ways to educate all these young people who come in there from Mexico who can't understand English or read or write English. And they're way behind in their education. And it's slowing down the educational process for everybody else. So it's real. It's in your backyard. And let's hope that the Speaker of the House stands his ground and does not blink. 50 minutes now, past the hour of 3 o'clock. On Super Talk 99.7. I want to talk about gold, which has been used as money for millennia, a tried and true store of value consistent across generations. You know, there's been some people who've observed that generational wealth has 3 components: land, art, and precious metals. And, land is expensive right now with interest rates as they are. And art, I don't know anything about art. But precious metals, man, that's something you can put in your hand. You can touch it. You can feel it. You can hold it. It's real. It's tangible. And it has value. Do you have gold or silver that was given to you? You're curious about what it's worth, or curious about precious metals and you just want to learn more? Well, listen, you can learn all about the importance of owning precious metals by going to Nashville Gold and Coin. Inflation is currently decreasing the value of your money. That's right. And you can know that gold and silver can be a safe haven during these uncertain economic times. Well, the folks at Nashville Gold and Coin are always available to discuss your options and educate you on the precious metal market. So do what I did and go to Nashville's real money source, Nashville Gold and Coin, and you can set up your one-on-one appointment at NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Keeping track of road conditions in Tennessee as a wintry mix continues to fall. The United States continuing to put pressure on Israel and Gaza. A fire in Tennessee and a body found at a Tennessee park. Those stories and more coming up. 4 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Just watching on my monitor the launch of an all-European crew to the space station, and it's on one of those SpaceX rockets. It's just shocking how good they've gotten at this thing, where they send them off, and then the booster stage lands upright, a few minutes later, where they clean it up, scrub it up, and use it again. All right, well, anyway, looking at the markets today, the Dow Jones Industrial up 201 points, the S&P up 41, the NASDAQ up 200 points today. There was some good news in the tech sector. With more on that, let's check in with John Maxon over at Beacon Capital Management. Good afternoon, John.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, a good day in the market overall, definitely led by the tech market. In fact, the NASDAQ 100 today hit a record high. So you don't see that very often. S&P is certainly inching closer, and there's a company out of Taiwan that provides chips for Apple and NVIDIA that their profit actually fell, but it beat Wall Street's expectations. The market really liked that. In addition to that, housing starts were 146 million versus 143 million expectations. So that was a good report. And so that really fueled a great day on the market. Still some mixed messages from the Fed we're watching closely, and we'll get a picture on the consumer tomorrow. The consumer sentiment report's coming out. Consumer spending, 70% of the economy, so that's a key report to look at tomorrow.
All right, thank you, John. Listen, find out more about all the things they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. 59 minutes now past the hour. So if you're ever in the market for a pole barn, man, you need to talk to the brothers who run Stoltz Co., the two guys who know what it's all about. Exceptional quality, craftsmanship, fair prices. They can build your new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind. That is the Stoltz Co. difference. Now, you can use a pole barn for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool or a work barn, a garage, or even a place to live. Flexibility is the key. They can design these things a lot of different ways. They combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of times. They do not scrimp on quality. They do not cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. So, listen, do me a favor. Go to their website, stoltzco.com. I'm going to spell that for you, STOLTZCO.com. Take a look at some of the things they've done for other people, and you'll get what we're talking about. This is not your grandpappy's pole barn. Then give them a call, 615-622-5992. Learn more at stoltzco.com. That's stoltzco.com.
.401, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 33 degrees in Music City, monitoring that wintry mix in the mid-state, and that leaves possibilities open for ice, slick road conditions. T-Dot's Rebecca Hammonds joined WTN's The Drive today and gave an update on what their crews are seeing right now.
Right now we have our crews out monitoring, checking road temperatures. And the good news is we're seeing road temperatures that are around 30 or higher, which is very positive, right? So we're, of course, concerned of that refreeze, but when we see temps around that mark, especially with all of the treatment that's still on the roads, it's going to be able to do its job. So that means that even though it may stick or start to stick, that brine and salt that we've been pouring onto it for the past few days, that'll be able to really work.
Right now, the rain is actually helping to melt the ice as long as those roads stay at the temperature they're at. TDOT's goal today is to get rid of the snowpacks on the streets. They feel as if the main roads and interstates will be passable, if not clear. Traffic complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. The United States pushing back on Israel's hard-line stance against establishing a Palestinian state to end the decades-long tensions. Andy Field with the latest from the State Department.
While the U.S. sends Israel billions in military aid, the president and members of Congress are pushing the Jewish state to end its resistance to an independent Palestinian state. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller.
This is not a question of the United States pressuring them to do anything. This is about the United States laying out for them the opportunity that they have.
Israel's prime minister rejecting that opportunity.
A fire in Tennessee, a 50-year-old woman who was killed in an apartment fire last night in Clarksville has now been identified as Jenna Michelle West. The fire happened on Darlene Drive. Fire crews responded around 9:40 p.m. A neighbor smelled smoke, heard the fire alarm going off. They called 911. CFR said the neighbor knocked on the door and they tried to get the neighbor to come to the door. No cause to these flames have been identified. And authorities say that a man found at the bottom of a 700-foot bluff is one of the 14 Tennessee deaths blamed on winter storm weather.
Channel 4 says the 46-year-old man's body was found in Falls Creek Falls State Park after Van Buren County deputies were dispatched to a report of a lost person near the north entrance to the park. A highway patrol helicopter spotted the person's location. There were tracks in the snow leading to the bluff line overlooking Cane Creek Gorge. That's where the body was found 700 feet below. The search and recovery took place in sub-freezing temperatures. One rescuer was treated at a local hospital for mild hypothermia, but was expected to be released. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And that is the latest news, traffic, a weather forecast coming up next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Good afternoon, everybody. 8 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and this is hour number 2 of the drive for the 18th day of January, a Thursday. We are watching the weather very closely. There is a winter weather advisory in effect because we are concerned about the, well, I mean, it's a scary thought, the wintry mix, the wintry mix of precipitation. Look, I think we're going to be okay. It's 30 degrees outside, but there's some precipitation in the area, and that could potentially, in some areas, cause it to freeze. Honestly, I'd be worried about my sidewalks. I'd be worried about my driveway. I'd be worried about the tertiary roads, the third level roads that go into your neighborhood. Those are the things I think are going to be really, really tricky. But, it could ice up, and it's going to get colder tonight. So just be aware of the winter weather advisory and the dreaded wintry mix. Okay, let's spend some time talking about something else, something that I think you all care about, the 2024 election. And every day, I could do a full hour and a half on what we got going on. First of all, let me just say that I want to make a confession here today. When you do what I do, I'm trying to give it to you straight. When we have a Republican event and several candidates running for the nomination, I want to give it to you straight. But I'm always on the lookout to make sure I'm not being biased in some way. But I think I have been a little biased, but. It's an honest bias. It's not like I'm for one candidate or the other. As a radio talk show host, I think you tend to want an interesting story because you got to talk about it, right? So I think if I have an interest, it's that having something to talk about it, then it's not all over. And to that front, let me just say, if you twist my arm and want to know, well, what's going to happen? Donald Trump's going to be the nominee. I mean, it seems pretty clear that he's going to be the nominee. Now, when I say that, they say, well, what about Haley? What about DeSantis? DeSantis, I cannot see a pathway to victory. Nikki Haley, there is one narrow window, one little, with all the stars have to align perfectly, and that she might be a challenger. But I mean, can she last beyond South Carolina? Probably not. Probably not. So what am I talking about? Well, she's doing okay in New Hampshire, and she's been getting some momentum. And with people falling out like Christie and Ramaswamy, there are voters out there that are available. And if you run the numbers, there is a scenario under which Nikki Haley might squeak out a win, probably won't, but might in New Hampshire, and then she would be going to her home state. Now, the fact of the matter is, in her home state, she's in trouble. Trump is just dominating there. So let me just give you the latest numbers. And I'm just going to go with the Real Clear Politics. There are some polls that are more favorable to Nikki Haley than others, but let's just look at the Real Clear Politics average of polls in New Hampshire. Trump 46, Haley 33, DeSantis 6. Trump leads by 14 points. That's a heavy lift. Now, what is not done in that particular poll is they haven't assigned the votes that Chris Christie was going to get, which is around 10% to anyone. It might fall to Haley, and if it does, then it would be Trump 46, Haley 43. Trump would still win, but it would be a lot closer. So all I'm saying here is, if things align perfectly for her in New Hampshire, she gets a ticket punched out that goes to South Carolina, which is her home state. But once you get to South Carolina, I don't see it happening for her. Right now in South Carolina, again, the Real Clear Politics average of polls, Trump 52, Haley 21, DeSantis 11. Trump leads by 30 in Nikki Haley's home state. DeSantis has he says he's not given up in New Hampshire, but he really has. Most of the people that were working for him in New Hampshire have moved on to South Carolina. He's going to make his last stand there. This story is, I think, right on the money from the Washington Times. Nikki Haley's Granite State showdown with Trump could upend her race or end her campaign. No long lines of supporters are waiting hours to get into Nikki Haley's campaign rally Wednesday night, but even without Donald Trump's level of enthusiasm, she is the biggest threat to the former president in Tuesday's critical primary. She arrived in New Hampshire this week after placing third in Iowa caucuses, but close enough to a second-place win to make her a contender in the state, where polls show her with 16 percentage points, within 16 percentage points of Mr. Trump. New Hampshire is the most competitive contest in any of the early voting states, all otherwise dominated outright by Mr. Trump and Ms. Haley. And Ms. Haley is fighting here to upend the battle for the nomination by winning it. So she's got to win here if there's any chance at all, but it doesn't look like there's much of a chance. And so she's in second place, as we say, in South Carolina, but I mean, way behind Donald Trump. Look, I mean, if you're a betting person, you got to go with Trump for the nomination. It seems like it's pretty much over, but it's never over until it's over, until the people have spoken. And I just want to be honest with you. There is a thin, narrow, just a little tiny window where Nikki Haley, if all the stars align perfectly, might win in New Hampshire. And if she won in New Hampshire, then what in the heck would happen, after that is hard to know. But it's not likely. Possible, but not likely. As long as we're talking about Donald Trump, who's going to be his vice presidential running mate is now sort of the parlor game that's at play. It always is. And so TJ, Donald J. Trump Jr., was on Newsmax. And he did an interview, and they talked about possibility of running mates for Trump, and Tucker Carlson's name came up as somebody that wouldn't be surprised. But there are a lot of names being tossed around. Here we go.
Could you see your father running with Ron DeSantis? I asked him that question over the summer, and he didn't rule it out. Could you see Ron DeSantis?
How do you? It's hard. People do that. Like, I would do whatever I could to make sure it wasn't Nikki Haley. But but like a Ron DeSantis, could I see? You're never going to rule out someone that is, a leading contender. It doesn't mean that's who you go with. I could see other people that would be great. I'd love to see, a J.D. Vance. I'd love to see a Tucker Carlson. I'd love to see, people who are just principally, in alignment as well as like aggressive. You actually need a fighter. The Republicans in Washington, D.C. are weak. You can have the House, the Senate, and they'll still roll over. It doesn't
Don,
matter.
Is your dad serious about Tucker Carlson? Are those rumors serious?
I would imagine, listen, that's clearly it would be on the table, right? I mean, they're very friendly. I think they agree on virtually all of these things. They certainly agree on stopping the never-ending wars. And so, I would love to see that happen. And, that would certainly be a contender.
Ben Carson, those rumors legit?
Ben's great. I mean, what a great American, someone who was just steadfast and loyal throughout all of the insanity of the last years. I'd love to see that. And, Ben's almost too nice for politics. That may be the only problem. Can you withstand the insanity that's in there? But I'd love to see a Ben Carson in there.
That might be a good thing. But no way Nikki Haley.
Well, that's my opinion. I don't make these decisions, but I don't think that's currently really on the table.
But your father listens to you. Your father listens to you, his family, maybe more than anyone else. That opinion matters.
I've been pretty involved in the political game for quite some time, and I think, more importantly, I actually, let's say live with the base. I hang out with the base. Those are my people. Those are my friends. I'm not, the New York City rubber chicken dinner, like charity circuit guy. Like, I hunt and fish and travel with real Americans, and I think I have a pretty good understanding of where they're at.
Well, I thought that was interesting. I thought, I didn't have much, I didn't put much stock in the Tucker Carlson thing, but maybe I need to revisit that. Maybe that is something, because he mentioned the name and says that they see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. I don't know. It seems like to me that with Trump, what you need in a vice presidential running mate is somebody who can go out there and shore up some part of the base that you need to shore up. And for me, Donald Trump's weakness, if you look at the polling numbers, are women. He needs to shore up the voting with women. So I always thought it would be somebody like maybe a Kristi Noem, Certainly not a Nikki Haley. That's not going to happen for sure because they hate each other now. Just we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, the other side of the equation. Much has been made today of this. Here is President Biden. He's in North Carolina, I think it is, and he's giving a speech, and he's doing shout-outs to people that, this is what politicians do when they're warming up. I'd like to say hello to my good friend, that person who's a congressman or a local leader, and he's doing that kind of stuff, and this is what happened.
I also want to mention Congressman Deborah Ross. Where's Deborah? This year, I just had my picture taken with her. That's probably why she left. No, all kidding aside. Anyway, she couldn't be here, actually. That's not true. I got it mixed up. And she has, she fights very hard for the people of this district, and she's up in Washington right now.
So let's just revisit this. The first thing he says is he calls out the name of someone on
I
a list.
also want to mention Congressman Deborah Ross. Where's Deborah?
Yeah, and then he says, I know she's here because I just had my picture taken with her.
This year, I just had my picture taken with her.
Well, then he goes on for a moment, and then he makes a little joke when he doesn't see that person. Then he has a cognitive remembers that she actually is not there.
She couldn't be here, actually. That's not true. I got it mixed up. And she has, she fights very hard for the people of this district, and she's up in Washington right now.
I got it a little mixed up. But this is the commander-in-chief, ladies and gentlemen.
Whose picture did he take?
I don't know. He thought he had taken a picture with her.
Wow.
Earlier. They do the grip and grins before they come out, what they call the grip and grins, where everybody comes by and gets their picture taken, and with all the dignitaries that are there for that particular trip. And he thought he had done it. Then he remembered, no, she's not even here. Wow. And I'm a little mixed up, he says. Does not inspire a lot of confidence, does it? And so I was looking at another story, and I'm going to get to it later, about Hunter Biden's laptop. And I just listened to him. This is Trump from 2020. Pay no attention to what he's saying. Just notice that in 2020, he could put a sentence together.
Do you believe the recent leak of material allegedly from Hunter's computer is part of a Russian disinformation campaign?
From what I've read and know, the intelligence community warned the president that Giuliani was being fed disinformation from the Russians. And we also know that Putin is trying very hard to spread disinformation about Joe Biden.
I mean, again, don't focus on what he's saying, but just notice that he's talking, and he seems to make sense in 2020. I mean, how far has he deteriorated, from this situation?
She couldn't be here, actually. That's not true. I got it mixed up.
Yeah, I mean, he has, because it's incremental, that's the thing about it. When you have something that happens every day and it's sort of a drip, 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 drip thing, you don't notice it. But, after a while, that drip turns into a bucket of water. And I'm telling you, you need to go back and look at how far he's fallen in just 3 years. By the way, his approval ratings hit a nearly a 20-year low, according to ABC News. So people are worried about this guy. Finally, Ron DeSantis opens up about the 2024 campaign. He has regrets. This sounds like a guy about ready to check out, is what it sounds like to me. He said, I should have been blanketing the airwaves. I should have gone on all of the big shows. I should have gone on everything. He said he made a mistake by not doing more media. We had an opportunity, I think, to come out of the gate and do that and reach a much more broader group of people. Now I'm everywhere. I mean, I'll show up anywhere. But doesn't that sound like somebody who's starting to think about, well, woulda, coulda, shoulda? It does to me. 22 after the hour now of 4 o'clock.
More cold weather ahead, monitoring icy road conditions as that wintry weather mix is falling. Plus the latest money news. Those stories 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
What did you call it? Did you call it the dreaded wintry mix? I mean, we need to be very careful. I mean, really, honestly.
Yes.
This is the kind of weather that can sneak up on you. I'll tell you what you got to watch out for is you can't see it. It's like it's there, but you can't see it. Black ice.
Oh, yeah.
Black ice on the
dangerous.
It is so dangerous, and you can be in it and not even know it's there. And so when you have this, this is a really, really dangerous time. Now look, some places are better off than others, and this is one of those things. But, I mean, you've got to be aware that when there's precipitation and temperatures around 30, you're looking at a very and already icy conditions on the ground, right? You're looking at things can get very slick. And I'll tell you what I worry about is people falling, with
just about to say that.
Sidewalks and stairways, or if you didn't get them real cleaned up the first time and then you get a little precipitation on them, I mean, zoop, next thing you know, you're on your butt. And people it can really change your life to have a bad fall, especially as you get older. So be careful. I think about these things now because I'm getting older, I do think about them. 14 people have died in the state of Tennessee as a result of extreme winter weather. This, according to the Tennessee Department of Health. 3 of those were in Middle Tennessee, Hickam, Van Buren, and Henry County. Some of the things that happened, you can see how these things would not go well. I have it right here. Hang on. A breakdown of how some of these things occurred. Yeah, a 66-year-old man in Hickman County died Monday when he fell through a skylight while trying to brush snow off the roof. That's, I could see people trying to get up on a roof or worried about the roof not being strong enough to handle a bunch of snow, trying to brush it off, and the next thing you know, you've fallen through a skylight. And you've talked about it in your news, Mac, a hiker in Falls Creek State Park that went off the bluff and fell some 700 feet. Man, that's a bad one. They had brought in the Tennessee Highway Patrol helicopter to find him using a thermal imaging camera, and they worked overnight in, can you imagine, the most difficult situations with ropes to recover the body. And then, most of the others are like, crashes that happen out on the highway. Hypothermia deaths may up this number, but the problem with hypothermia deaths are when they occur, they're not immediately reported until there's an autopsy. And so, that takes a little time. The numbers may go up. There may be other people who have lost their lives as a result of the cold weather as well, but you don't know. So be on the lookout. We are in a winter storm advisory, winter weather advisory through tomorrow morning. And be afraid and very respectful of the dreaded wintry mix. 4:30 now on Super Talk.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 32 degrees in Nashville, and that wintry weather mix in Tennessee making for slick, icy road conditions. Channel 4's Brendan Tierney on the roads, giving us a look.
The plows had started to make a lot of progress on the smaller roads today, but as soon as this freezing rain threat moved in earlier today, they had to go back to those primary roads. As you can see, these smaller roads that we're on right now up here in the Nations are still covered in snow and ice, and in fact, we've been sliding around a lot since we got up here within the past half hour, with a lot of those spots that are just really slippery with temperatures hovering around freezing right now. Main roads are not nearly as bad, though. They're just wet at this hour from the melting snow that had been cleared off earlier this week.
And a winter weather advisory in effect until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Forecast traffic report just ahead in 5 minutes. Right now in Tennessee, Channel 4 reports that a man whose body was found in Fall Creek Falls State Park is considered one of the 14 winter storm-related deaths to be reported so far. A Tennessee Highway Patrol helicopter spotted that person's location, and footprints were followed to the bluff line overlooking Cane Creek Gorge. That man's body was 700 feet below. Now over to some money news. Here's Daria Albinger.
What goes down eventually comes up, including the markets. After back-to-back losses, the Dow soared 202 points, the Nasdaq added 200, and the S&P rose a fraction. Big tech stocks help lead things, along with Fastenal, which distributes fasteners, reporting stronger profits than expected. Treasury yields held steady following mixed economic reports. First-time jobless claims fell last week to the lowest level in more than a year, yet another sign of the strength of the labor market, despite other worries about the economy. The number of people filing for benefits fell by 26,000 from the week before. That's the fewest since September of 2022. A boost for would-be homebuyers. Freddie Mac says the average rate on a 30-year loan fell to 6.6%, to its lowest level since May. Walmart is raising base pay for store managers to $90,000 to $170,000 a year.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair on this 18th day of January. It's cold. After I gave everybody the warning about be very careful when you get out, I had to run and stretch my legs during the break, as I sometimes do. Yeah, and it was slick. I mean, I was on that sidewalk out there between here and the house, and I mean, it was slick.
But you stayed upright.
I did not fall.
All right, that's
I
good.
did not fall, but I slipped. And the thing about it is that the key I always thought was to bring your center of balance forward, because when you're standing straight up and your feet go out from underneath you, you fall backwards almost always.
Yeah,
you don't generally fall forwards. So if you lean forward when you walk, like a humped over old man that I've become, I mean, your center of balance now is up on your tippy toes, and it's a little harder to slip that way. That's my theory.
I think that's a pretty good theory. Also, I think they advise to kind of penguin walk, like turn your feet out,
like the penguin.
Yeah, that helps as well.
Well, I walk like that anyway, so that's nothing new. You know what get me is that being a big guy, I have big feet. I wear a size 14 shoe or boot. Yeah, I mean, and the problem is that for people who have big feet, your foot is always longer than the tread of a stairway.
Oh yeah.
So the toes are always hanging. So for me, stairs are where if I'm going to fall, it's going to be around stairs, because you're going down and your feet are bigger than the steps. And if you make one little sort of bad step, you find yourself in a big crumpled heap at the bottom of the stairs, which has happened to me a couple of times.
It's not fun.
No, it's not fun. The last time it happened, I yelled out, "Ow!" Because I wasn't hurt, but I mean, it's still never any fun. You sort of twist your ankle or something, and you end up, in a crumpled heap at the bottom, like a turtle on its back. That's what I look like. I look like a turtle on my back. I fell.
Now that sounds funny.
Cabana wife thought it was hilarious.
I bet she did.
Once she found out I was okay, what did you do?
Need a little help there?
Stairs got you again? Okay, all right. Oh no. She's always there to help me, but I mean, I'm telling you, be careful on steps and on sidewalks, and if you're driving, because I mean, this stuff is it's unforgiving. It really is. When it strikes you, you're just along for the ride. You hit the brakes and you're in ice. Just don't worry about steering.
That's a scary feeling.
Just tighten the seatbelt and you're along for the ride, because if it's really ice, there's not much you can do about it. All right, I want to talk a little bit about several things. Number one, there was a vote today about a continuing resolution to fund the government while they continue to work out the last-minute deals. And I've been getting emails. Mark Green, Congressman Rose, I'm sure there are others, voted against it. And they're just tired of the continuing resolution. They want to get it done and want to get it right. And while the negotiations are ongoing, it did pass the House. It probably will pass the Senate. And they're not going to be a government shutdown. But we are still fighting very hard on the issue of getting something done about the border in connection with all of this funding. So that's still going on. But again, a CR, a continuing resolution, was passed today without the support of quite a few Republicans. And I wonder how that makes them feel about the current Speaker of the House. Because, it doesn't take much to get knocked out of that chair, as we have seen. The judge in the Trump, Georgia case has ordered a hearing on Fani Willis and misconduct accusations. This is pretty interesting stuff. The Georgia judge, this from the Hill.com, the Georgia judge overseeing former President Trump's criminal case scheduled a hearing next month to weigh accusations that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis hired her romantic partner as top prosecutor in the case. Judge Scott McAfee scheduled the hearing for February 15th and directed Willis to respond to the allegations in writing by February 2nd. The accusation first surfaced last week in court papers filed by an attorney for Mike Roman, a Trump 2020 campaign operative who is one of the former president's co-defendants in the Georgia election interference case. The filing did not contain any hard proof of the alleged relationship. Roman said the purported relationship between Willis and the special prosecutor Nathan Wade makes the indictment fatally defective and asked the judge to dismiss the charges. He also asked the judge to block the Fulton County District Attorney's Office from further involvement in the case. Now, during a church service earlier this week, Willis appeared to defend her hiring of Wade without naming him, also insinuating that race had played a role in the criticisms. Trump's lead lawyer signaled last week that the former president might join Roman's motion after Willis had a chance to respond. I mean, it sounds, from what I'm beginning to see, it sounds like that they had this stuff sort of buttoned up. $654,000. Apparently, they've been going on vacations together, and the prosecutor's ex-wife, or estranged wife, has subpoenaed a deposition from Willis. Well, none of that sounds good, does it? So that is ongoing, and at least there will be a hearing on it, according to this judge. The governor decided, he was asked to get involved, and he decided he'll just stay out of it. It looks like it's going to get handled on the judicial level. Biden's Department of Justice finally admits that Hunter Biden's laptop is real. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Remember back in 2020 when he was asked about it? Here's what the former president, what the current president said.
Do you believe the recent leak of material allegedly from Hunter's computer is part of a Russian disinformation campaign?
From what I've read and know, the intelligence community warned the president that Giuliani was being fed disinformation from the Russians. And we also know that Putin is trying very hard to spread disinformation about Joe Biden. And so when you put the combination of Russia, Giuliani, the president together, it's just what it is. It's a smear campaign because he has nothing he wants to talk about. What is he running on? What is he running on?
Well, he was he knew very well that it was real. Everybody knew it was real. This story was first put out by the New York Post, and then a lot of mainstream media then said, no, the story's wrong because it's Russian disinformation, because that was the story that the intelligence community and a bunch of people in the intelligence community put out supporting Biden because they hate Trump. It took the establishment media over a year to admit the story was false. The Washington Post admitted Hunter's laptop was authentic. CNN, New York Times, CBS News. I mean, everybody got on board, quite a while saying that they knew it was real. And the Justice Department knew this up front and said nothing when all of these accusations that it was a bunch of Russian disinformation were thrown into the arena. So, I mean, that's just nonsense. However, Hunter Biden, this story from the Washington Times, he could really do some time in the Gray Bar Hotel. Hunter Biden faces real prison time, between 15 and 21 months, if he is convicted on the gun charges he faces, prosecutors have told a federal judge. Revelation part of a series of filings in the case in which special counsel David Weiss answered Mr. Biden's claim that he's being unfairly targeted for crimes just because of his famous last name. Mr. Weiss and Derek E. Hines, the senior assistant special counsel, told a judge this week that Mr. Biden's case is actually worse than other defendants who have been charged with lying on gun background checks and possessing a firearm despite being a prohibited person. For one thing, he was a self-destructive user of cocaine, which they said is a more dangerous drug than marijuana, which accounts for many of the gun drug cases. Also characterized Mr. Biden as reckless, pointing out that he essentially begged to be prosecuted by bragging about it in his 2021 memoir about his drug-saturated life at the time he bought and owned the Colt revolver. Mr. Hines even revealed that the pouch that Mr. Biden used to store the firearm had a white powder on it that tested positive for cocaine. To be clear, investigators literally found drugs on the pouch where the defendant had kept his gun, they wrote. Been indicted on 2 charges of making false statements related to the purchase of the gun and 1 charge of possessing the gun while being an unlawful drug user. 2 of those charges carry maximum sentences of 10 years, and the other carries a maximum of 5 years, though Mr. Biden would unlikely get anywhere near that much time if convicted. The government preliminary estimates the defendant's post-trial guidelines as determined would be 15 to 21 months. Now, those guidelines are not binding on the judge, but do give a sense of the potential jeopardy for Mr. Biden, who has downplayed the seriousness of the case against him. He's going to do some time. I think he may actually do some time. I think I would be shocked, stunned, and amazed, but I think it may happen. And how will that impact our current president of the United States? Because he apparently feels that Hunter would not be prosecuted if he didn't have a famous last name. And I would argue that he probably got a break because of his famous last name. I don't know. Interesting. This story I hit briefly yesterday, but I think it's important. Hunter Biden's art dealer spoke twice with President Joe Biden, the gallerist told members of Congress in a recent interview. George Burgess told the House Judiciary Committee in a closed-door interview that he never spoke with the White House, but he did spend time in person with President Biden, the father of Mr. Biden, of Hunter Biden. Have you spoken to the president? He said yes. When asked whether that was in person or over the phone, he said both. The in-person encounter was in the White House in 2022 when Naomi Biden, Mr. Biden's daughter and President Biden's granddaughter, was married. The art dealer said. The other time was over the phone. And the White House did not respond to a request for comment, but this was supposed to be kept at arm's length. And there's the rest of the story goes on to say that Hunter Biden apparently asked this guy to keep him informed as to who bought his, I'm using air quotes here, art. He wasn't supposed to know who it was. The White House wasn't supposed to know who it was, and there weren't supposed to be any contact between him and the art dealer on this matter, but apparently there was a lot of contact. Just like apparently there's a lot of contact between Joe Biden and his business partners, Hunter Biden's business partners. It takes a while to find out this stuff. It takes depositions behind closed doors, but you finally get the truth. You finally get the truth. Make that 51 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. Let's talk about Grace Point Healthcare. You're known for delivering medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing so you will know how much it costs before the care is delivered. They have smart care plans, and this is something to really think about. $69 a month, you get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. If you marry that with a high-deductible insurance plan that you may have had to take at your place of work, it could save you and your family a lot of money. Now, at Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider year after year after year. And Grace Point Healthcare is on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number to set up your appointment. 599-6868. That's 599-6868 to schedule an appointment.
taking a look at those roads as that wintry mix is falling in Middle Tennessee, increasing a likelihood for possibly icy, slick roads. We had TDOT join the show, and they let us know what their crews are doing. An update on Hunter Biden, some crime in Tennessee, and a very national popular court case makes a comeback after almost 20 years. 5 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's Brian Wilson in the chair. We've got lots more ahead here on the next 2 hours of the drive. You don't want to miss it. Of course, 525, yeah, 525, Mac Maury's Wild World of Sports. We'll catch up with him. He hasn't been here for a couple of days, so we'll catch up on all of that. We'll talk about the border situation. We're going to talk about what happened in Uvalde. There's been a big report there on that shooting there. And, of course, 2024 election results as we look at the polls and look forward to see who's going to be our next president. It's becoming a bit more clear as we go forward. It's 58 minutes past the hour, 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Hey, I got a note here from Johnny Fleeman, who's the owner of the Brass Lantern and Legends restaurants around the area. They're celebrating 35 years in Middle Tennessee. And they want to say thank you so much for supporting them over all these many years. And to celebrate the year 35, they want me to tell you a little bit about some of the things that they serve at their restaurants, some of their specials. Monday, they have fresh breaded chicken fingers with fries and coleslaw, $8.99. Tuesday, slow-cooked prime rib, $18.99. Wednesday, 6-ounce choice sirloin with a side, only $8.99. Thursday is hamburger steak dinner for $8.99. Sundays, they feature 3 pasta dinners. You can choose the one you want, each of them $9.99. Now, remember, for over 35 years, the Brass Lantern and Legends restaurant has given you authentic, made-from-scratch, delicious recipes at affordable prices. That's what they give you, good food at affordable prices. Hope you enjoy the good food and the service, and don't forget to check in for them during their lunch offerings, which start at $6.99. And don't forget to pick up those delicious Johnny Fleeman products at your local grocery store. You're going to enjoy your next visit to the Brass Lantern or Legends restaurant nearest you.
.501, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories right now. Just exactly freezing, 32 degrees in Music City as we are monitoring a wintry mix falling in Middle Tennessee, leaving a possibility for ice, slick road conditions. TDOT's Rebecca Hammonds joined WTN's The Drive and gave an update on what their crews are seeing.
Our goal today has been to clear that snowpack that you mentioned. We know that there are some secondary state routes that we really had to tackle today to get fully passable and clear. And what we didn't want is for this whatever falls now to refreeze on top. So we feel good in most areas that those secondary routes and of course our primaries are definitely passable, if not clear for the most part.
And she said that they have their crews monitoring road temperatures. They're seeing temps around 30 or higher, which is very good news. Traffic weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. After months of demands and threats to hold him in contempt, the House committee now says the president's son, Hunter Biden, will sit for a closed-door deposition next month. Andy Field with details.
At first, Hunter Biden said he would voluntarily answer any questions the committee had for him in public. Republicans said that wasn't good enough and threatened to hold him in contempt if he refused a closed-door session. The committee now says the president's son has agreed to do that in February. It is part of the House Republicans' attempt to find evidence to impeach President Biden.
And Republicans have accused the Biden family of shady business practices. So far, no exact evidence of wrongdoing has been produced. Crime in Tennessee. A teenager was taken into custody last night after officials saw him driving a stolen car, and they found vehicle theft tools with him. 19-year-old Nicholas Dalton was behind a Dodge Durango that had a busted-out window. Officials found a key fob programmer along with 12 key fobs, 2 temporary tags, a window breaker, and a screwdriver all inside of his backpack that he was carrying. He's now being held on a $22,000 bond. And we've learned the Innocence Project is getting involved in the 2004 conviction of Scott Peterson, who was found guilty of killing his wife and unborn child. Alex Stone.
This is a big development in a case from the early to mid-2000s. Scott Peterson convicted of killing his wife Lacey and their unborn child. Now the Innocence Project getting involved, filing a request for evidence in the case. Scott Peterson's family saying it is an attempt to either get a new trial or Peterson released from prison. He is no longer on death row. He was resentenced to life in prison after he claimed juror misconduct.
And right now in our nation's capital, the Justice Department has released a scathing report today outlining what's described as cascading failures of leadership during the 2022 mass shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde. The report documents several critical failures and breakdowns prior to, during, and after the incident by responding officers that ultimately led to the slaughter of 19 children and 2 teachers before law enforcement breached the classroom 77 minutes after the first officers responded to the scene. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's 8 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 on this 18th day of January. We're ripping right through the first month of the year. It's cold. It's right at the freezing mark, and we have some precipitation that has been falling, and therefore that's a bad combination. So we ask you to be super uber careful, and if you're on the roadways, of course, that's one thing. You could be on black ice and not even know it. That black ice can slip up on you so quick. And then your walkways, your sidewalks, your stairways, any steps you have off your front porch, those are all, man, I'm telling you, they could be very slick right now. So especially if you had an incomplete clearing of the material before.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. My neighborhood street is that way. It never got plowed, and so there's still snowpack that has been driven over for the last 2 or 3 days.
Right.
I have a feeling that's going to be very slippery tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you put a glaze of ice on top of that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do. You hit the brake, and it's sort of like, as they said in that famous song, Wolf Creek Pass, kind of sort of like stepping on a plum.
Yeah,
just squish. It just goes down and nothing happens.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, you don't want that. So be very careful out there tonight. I really do worry that we're going to have some real bad traffic jams, etc. Now, look, the TDOT people, they've been out there working on it, but they can't get everywhere. Let me just say this, for sort of like everybody whines. Well, why can't they clear the roads? Well, they could. But to clear the roads the way they do in some of these other states, they would have to have a much larger investment in equipment and manpower. And then, honestly, what do we have? 1 or 2 days a year where it's sort of bad? Do you really want to make that kind of big investment and you could do it, and then you would have the equipment to do and the manpower to do whatever you needed to do, but it would be expensive. To me, I understand why we don't have as many trucks as they do, let's say, where I was the other day in Iowa, or, up north, in places where they get a lot more snow. It doesn't make sense for us to have that much equipment and that much manpower. So we have some. It's limited, and when we have these bad days, it takes them a while to get out there and get it done. And then in the other part of it is, though, I would rather that be the case where we are put out for a couple of days now and then than to spend an ungodly amount of taxpayer dollars to have the perfect solution for whatever came. We would be wasting, I think, taxpayer dollars to do that. So that's why we're not particularly good at it, because we don't really have the equipment, the resources, the manpower to really do what needs to be done. And I hear people say, well, when I lived up and it's true. When I lived in Washington, D.C., man, they cleared the roads. When I lived in Maryland, actually. I mean, they cleared the roads, but we had more snow then. You could count on several really big snowstorms in a given winter season. We don't have that here. And by the way, Tennessee, by and large, if you talk to meteorologists about this, we're on sort of that very dangerous snow rain line, and so a lot of times what we end up getting is not snow, it's ice, because we're right on that bubble between the place where it will freeze or the place where it often will just be a rain event. And then the most amazing thing is, if you look at the weather forecast a week or so out, it's going to be deadgum near 70 degrees.
Yeah, I think it's next Thursday, a week from today. Yeah.
I said, was that 70? I think last time I looked. Well, let me just pull up my handy app. I'll just give
in the 60s, I think.
Yeah, it's well in the 60s. It's like 68, nearly 70 degrees. Let me look at it. Here's Nashville. So next Tuesday, 51. Next Wednesday, 56. Next Thursday, 64. Wow. Next Friday, 63. Next Saturday, it gets a little cooler, 48. This weekend, though, we don't even get to freezing. We don't get above freezing all weekend long. Saturday, 7 for a low and a high of 20. Sunday, 6 for a low and a high of 40. Well, okay, on Sunday, a high of 31. So today our high was just above the freezing mark, but it's starting to get cold again. And so any moisture that fell, if it hasn't been treated with salt, will freeze. So be really, really careful. I don't want to be talking about you tomorrow on the radio. Rand Paul was right about just about everything with regard to COVID-19. We know this now because Anthony Fauci has gone behind closed doors and he's given depositions, and he's saying, well, the lab leak, it really wasn't a conspiracy theory. It's at least possible. Yes, it's possible. It could be a lab. It was a lab leak. The masks, yeah, I don't know. Masks, we've seen some studies. They don't really work. Social distancing, minimal. Some of the new studies that have come out, he agreed. Minimal. So where did that stuff come from? I just sort of showed up when we were talking about it. I don't know where it came from. Well, he was supposed to be the top guy. He was out there saying, we must wear masks. We must socially distance. And the world freaked out. And now we're finding, it's not so much. Didn't really have that much of an impact. Except that millions of people died because the NIH funded gain of function research and a lab in China, and it got out. I mean, are we a 1,000,000% sure that's what happened? No, but is that the most likely scenario? Yes, all the evidence is now pointing that direction, and everybody who says otherwise is pulling your leg, is bad. Rand Paul was right. He kept saying this stuff, and he was castigated for it. He was on Laura Ingram's show last night.
Everything they blamed the right on, vaccine hesitancy, not trusting government officials, the loss of trust in government, I told them over and over again, and I still continue to tell them, it is at their feet. It's not at those of us who said, well, maybe we should examine individually whether older people might benefit from the vaccine versus younger people who might not need it, or whether or not people who've already been infected may not need to be vaccinated again, or maybe people don't need 3 or 4 vaccines if they've already been infected. None of these questions were ever answered. But the more they came out with things that weren't believable, like that your 6-month-old needs 3 vaccines or your 12-year-old needs 3 vaccines, even if they've had COVID, and that none of the studies included the variable of whether you have had COVID. So they would do these large studies and compare booster to no booster, and they couldn't show that it stopped transmission because it doesn't. And for kids and teenagers and young people, they couldn't show that it reduced hospitalization or death because it didn't, because these kids were rarely going to the hospital. So then they came up with, they said, well, if we vaccinate your kid 3 times, they make antibodies.
What should the consequences be for Anthony Fauci?
Jail. I've sent 2 referrals to the Department of Justice. I think he lied to Congress, which is a felony. Several folks from the Trump administration were accused of lying to Congress and carted off to jail with FBI agents all over their property, yanking them out of their house early in the morning. But we have 2 tiers of justice here. It depends on whether you were a supporter of Donald Trump or you're a supporter of big government, the centralized government. But Anthony Fauci did lie to Congress. We know that from his own words, not because I say he lies, but his private emails say he was lying. Virtually everything he said in private contradicted what he was saying in public. And he was fairly honest in private. In private, he said masks don't work. In public, he wore 3 masks. In private, he admitted that there was such a thing as natural immunity gained from getting the infection. In public, he was like, we're not going to measure that. It's unpredictable.
So, I mean, none of that stuff was working, and yet we jumped through all these incredible hoops. We lost a whole generation that had got a substandard education because they had to learn remotely, and it just didn't work that well. We got a whole group of kids who are entering the work world here in a few years who honestly, quite frankly, did not get the education that they deserve. And that's because we did stupid things. We shut down our economy, which had a real impact on so many people and changed lives. Because we were told, well, you must keep people 6 feet apart. We can't have restaurants. We can't have bars. We can't have social gatherings. We can't go to church on Sunday. You can't do any of that stuff because it's too dangerous. Turns out it wasn't at all. Wasn't at all. And so, what this does is that, next time the government comes to you and says, well, we need to do this, and you may actually really need to do that, nobody's going to listen. Nobody's going to listen because they cried wolf and they lied to us. And they're still lying to us about the gain of function research, even though, everybody sees through that one, don't you? Don't you? Everybody sees that. So I'm telling you, somebody needs to pay for this. Somebody needs to pay for what happened. They need to pay for what the damage they did to the economy, the damage they did to our kids, the damage that may have been done by requiring that we all take vaccines that we didn't want to take. Who knows what the ramifications of that long term will be? So, look, so many things that we're told. Well, you're crazy. If you believe that, you're just you're a conspiracy theorist. I mean, they said that about the stuff that we believed about COVID. They say that about Hunter Biden's laptop, which and today that was the big story. Department of Justice finally admitting, well, yeah, that's Hunter's laptop. They knew it. They knew it at the time. They allowed that lie to go forward. Listen, when I look at it, there's just one common thread to all of this stuff. The lies are coming from Democrats. So let's try to, learn our lesson as we think about what we want to happen for this country in the next election cycle. Let's think about that. Who lied to us and who didn't lie to us? And again, Rand Paul is really owed an apology here because he was, his good name and reputation was run through the mud. And everybody said he's a nut job. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Turns out he knew exactly what he was talking about, and we all should have listened. 20 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock.
Keeping track of the weather as there is a big chance for ice to form on those roads as we get further into the evening. All coming up 5:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right. It's time for Mac Maury's wide, wild world of sports. And here he is. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. The incomparable Mac Maury, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo. Hello. Happy Friday Eve.
Yeah, it is. We've missed you the last couple of days. I really look forward to our sports chat every day. I always learn something. So what's our topic for today? Because I failed to get the memo.
Well, I know I'm the worst at the memo. We're keeping track of the head coaching vacancy for the Tennessee Titans. Some more news came out today as far as who they're interviewing for head coach. So they interviewed the Panthers offensive coordinator, Thomas Brown, for the head coaching position. Now, if you know anything about the National Football League this year and you hear Carolina Panthers, you go, we don't want that. 1-16 Carolina Panthers offensive coordinator. That's not good. Why would the Titans be doing that? Well, take a breath. Thomas Brown's done more things than just be with the Panthers this season. He was the assistant head coach and running backs coach for many years, for 3 years, I believe, with the Los Angeles Rams, right under Sean McVay, one of the most successful head coaches in the National Football League. He won a Super Bowl there with the Los Angeles Rams. And the only reason he really left to go be an OC is because he can't be an offensive coordinator with the Rams. That's Sean McVay. He's the head coach, but he's going to call the offense. Yeah. So Thomas Brown reached his peak there. He was the assistant head coach, and he could only do so much, running backs coach. So he got to go really man an offense that was very undermanned this season for the Carolina Panthers. There's not a lot of weapons, not a lot for him to work with, but that is who the Titans interviewed today. But an offensive mind. So we've seen a couple defensive minds. Aaron Glenn's been brought up yesterday from a guy at ESPN, Dan Graziano, said that he thinks that's who the Titans will pick as their head coach, defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, Aaron Glenn. So we'll see. That's the main update. And looking at former Titans head coach Mike Vrabel, there's some news with him as well.
I heard that, yeah.
He's now starting his interview process, which, I don't know where you stand on Vrabel. If you're a Titans fan, could be bittersweet, could just be plain old bitter watching him go interview for some of these head coaching positions. The Los Angeles Chargers have requested to interview Mike Vrabel, or they did interview Mike Vrabel for that head coaching position, and the Atlanta Falcons and the Seattle Seahawks both came out and said they would like to talk to Mike Vrabel as well. So he's going to be a hot candidate, as we knew.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm reading that Belichick has also interviewed with the Falcons?
Yes, the Atlanta Falcons. And there were some funny memes going around there about those because, the Atlanta Falcons, is there a time that you went through adversity and, Bill Belichick could be like, well, 28-3 against your team in the Super Bowl, and I overcame that, didn't I? I think Belichick probably did most of the interviewing there.
Yeah. Well, and what about, I'm reading Harbaugh's name is being bounced around again as, leaving Michigan and entering the NFL.
Yeah, I haven't seen any official interviews for him, but yeah, he's being bounced around a lot right now. I don't know if he's had any official interviews.
What I'm reading is that he also interviewed with the Atlanta Falcons.
Man, the Falcons. So they want an experienced guy. I mean, Vrabel, Belichick, obviously Harbaugh. They want someone who's tenured, who has had success. They don't want to go with a new guy, and that makes sense for them. Arthur Blank is an older owner. He's put in a lot of money to this team. He's really given control to any coach that comes there. He wants to win a Super Bowl, and so he's not going to waste any time doing that. He's going to try and find someone who's had success and been there and done that.
Yeah. So, what do you think the timeline is for making a decision about the Titans? We're all sort of on pins and needles to find out who's going to be leading this franchise.
It's interesting because I don't know if we've seen the last of the head coaches fired this season. I think.
Oh, really?
I think there is a chance that if the Buffalo Bills were to lose to the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend, there is a big chance that Sean McDermott's fired, and that would instantly be the number one job because you've got a roster there. You've got a top 3 quarterback in the league in Josh Allen. You can walk in and go, okay, we're going to compete right away. So a name like Harbaugh or Belichick or even Vrabel, that would be in a very attractive position for them. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a little longer than maybe we all initially thought. There's just lots of names.
I got an
idea.
Right, why don't we interview Vrabel?
Wouldn't that be nice, right? I've heard he's done pretty well.
Forget everything we said before. Just come on
back.
back.
Please,
Yeah.
please.
No way.
No,
I
think that ship has sailed, but I think there are a lot of people that'd be very happy if that were the case.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Look, they're they got a pretty good quarterback. They got some good draft picks. They're going to be building a world-class stadium. A real, top of the line facility here in the next few years. There's a lot that's attractive about what we have, and not only that, it's Nashville.
Yeah,
who doesn't want to live in Nashville? Everybody wants to live in Nashville.
It's a great location, and if you're looking for a rebuild and you're like, I don't know, I'm not going to have a lot to work with. Well, you've got the most cap space in the NFL this offseason, the Tennessee Titans.
That's true.
Lot of room to really sign some big names if that's where you want to go, or bring in some younger guys coming off a rookie contract to say, hey, we're signing you guys. You're going to be part of the next, great Tennessee Titans team, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think it could be a couple weeks there, Brian.
And I think if you look at, if you're the type of candidate that's wanting to win right now, you're not going to come to Tennessee.
No.
But it's like you were saying, Mac, if you can look past next year and maybe the year after at everything that you've got ahead of you, then it could be a place where you could really do hopefully win a Super Bowl.
That would be great. Be the first one ever for Nashville. Yeah, you just gotta be good with Amy Adams. Got to make sure you're good on that front too.
The wild card. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mac, time to take off the sports hat, put back on the news hat, because the news is next on Super Talk 99.7.
5:30, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. A winter weather advisory in effect until 9 a.m. tomorrow due to this winter weathery mix falling in Nashville. Channel 4's Lisa Spencer filling us in.
Rain, snow, freezing rain, and sleet combining, and that's just going to add to our problems with the travel hazard. So please be careful, and it can fool you too. I almost slipped on my own steps today because of that freezing rain, putting a coating of ice there, and still very cold over the weekend. We've got more Arctic air that'll be coming in and just continuing to be reinforced this weekend. I mean, these lows this weekend are going to be so biting. We've got ice accumulations expected with our winter weather advisory.
And right now, 33 degrees in Nashville, and just got a traffic alert from Channel 4. Disabled vehicle backing up traffic on I-65. That's near Goodlettsville. Full traffic report and a full weather forecast in 5 minutes. The U.S. military today continued its attacks on Houthi missile sites in Yemen. The president questioning how effective they've been in stopping that terror group. Here's Andy Field.
President Biden acknowledging U.S. strikes on Houthi launch sites have not stopped them from attacking ships in the Red Sea. The Pentagon reaction?
We never said that the Houthis would immediately stop.
Spokesperson Sabrina Singh.
We've been able to degrade and severely disrupt and destroy a significant number of their capabilities since Thursday.
The Houthis say they'll stop attacking commercial ships when Israel stops its war in Gaza.
And back in Tennessee, Nashville has suspended their trash pickup until Monday. Metro Water Services says that road conditions just aren't clear enough yet. Drop-off sites will open as soon as weather allows, and without regular pickup, convenience centers are slated to open on Saturday, but they could have to remain depending on the weather. That is the latest news, weather, and traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
So how are you faring in the rough and tumble market these days? Up one day, down the next. It makes you nervous, doesn't it? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and then help you make mid-course corrections that might be needed. I mean, wouldn't it be great to be able to relax a little bit, have peace of mind that you're absolutely on the right path? Beacon can provide that reassurance because it starts with a simple phone call. You call this number, 615-488-9303. They'll take some information from you. They will get back to you. But the thing you need to know is it doesn't cost you a penny to do this. You have nothing to lose except for all the worry. So get started today by calling 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. Again, the number, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. And learn more at askbeaconnow.com. $38 now past the hour of 5 o'clock. How you doing out there? If you're out on the roadway, be careful. Be careful. This stuff can bite you real quick. We got the dreaded wintry mix. Well, that was weak, wasn't it? It's more like the dreaded wintry mix. It's out there, and temperatures. I got an even 32 here in bucolic, Watertown. What you got there in Nashville?
32.
32, right at the freezing mark. Mm-hmm. And any of that precipitation that fell today, guess what? If it's not treated, it's going to freeze. On top of whatever else you got. I mean, I'm telling you, it could be bad. I have a healthy respect for it. I wouldn't want to be driving out there tonight if I didn't have to. So be really, really careful. Be uber careful. Or take an Uber. Let them take the risk.
I'm not sure I'd want to put my my life in someone else's hands.
I bet you couldn't get an Uber for love or money today, boy.
Probably not.
That's right. There you go. So much stuff that I want to cover here. I want to start with something that was a look back today. And, I don't have a lot of confidence in this guy, but I do think it's important for us to make sure that we learn the lessons when big mistakes are made. And if you look at what happened in Uvalde, and at the Robb Elementary School when they had that mass shooting there, a terrible, terrible situation. And what we have learned is something we need to revisit and remind ourselves of from time to time, is that the law enforcement really failed that community that day in a really horrific way. So the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, was down there to release I think it's like a 400-page report on exactly what they found in their investigation into the failures of law enforcement surrounding Uvalde.
The massacre at Columbine High School 25 years ago and the 47 minutes it took for law enforcement to enter that high school marked a major shift in how law enforcement leaders think about responding to mass shootings. It is now widely understood by law enforcement agencies across the country that in active shooter incidents, time is not on the side of law enforcement. Every second counts. And the priority of law enforcement must be to immediately enter the room and stop the shooter with whatever weapons and tools officers have with them. That is the approach responding officers first employed when they arrived at Robb Elementary School. But within minutes of arriving inside the school, officials on scene transitioned from treating the scene as an active shooter situation to treating the shooter as a barricaded subject. This was the most significant failure. That failure meant that law enforcement officials prioritized the protracted evacuation of students and teachers in other classrooms instead of immediately rescuing the victims trapped with the active shooter. It meant that officials spent time trying to negotiate with the subject instead of entering the room and confronting him. It meant that officials asked for and waited for additional responders and equipment instead of following generally accepted active shooter practice and moving toward the shooter with the resources they had. It meant waiting for a set of keys to open the classroom door, which the report concludes was likely unlocked anyway. And it meant that the victims remained trapped with the shooter for more than an hour after the first officers arrived on scene.
I mean, that's horrendous. A cascading set of failures, one led to another, to another, to another. And, you lost 19 students. The people that were inside there had to be in the presence of that shooter for an additional 77 minutes while law enforcement tried to get its act together and try to decide what they were going to do. Horrific failure of law enforcement there. And the Attorney General, though he's not often right, he's right about this. Ever since Columbine, the whole strategy has been get in quick. You have just moments to get in there and try to neutralize that individual. And never wait, never hesitate, go, go, go. I mean, that's what we did at Columbine, at New Covenant School when we had our shooting there. That's exactly what we did. I mean, the law enforcement got there, and as soon as they got on the ground, they were already saying, let's go. You, let's go. And they were in that building in a matter of seconds as soon as they got on the ground. They barely waited to put on their armor. They slapped on their armor, they grabbed their weapons, they put together a team, and they went in there. And they stopped it. Sadly, too late. It wasn't possible to save all the lives there, but how badly it could have gone had the police not done that, if they'd waited and lingered for 77 minutes before they went into the building. We did it right. Now, we did it right. The law enforcement officers that arrived on the scene did it right. I still think, and I'm just going to say this with utmost respect for what those police officers did on that day. This is not a knock against them at all. My concern, and not many people have focused on this, my concern is that on that day, you want to know how we could have done better? On that day, the officers who arrived on the scene went right in as soon as they got there, but it took them a little while to get there because why? We didn't have enough law enforcement officers on duty that day. They were spread too thin. The initial response time was not great. Now, nobody talks about that. I'm the only one who's ever mentioned it because nobody wants to denigrate what those law officers did. They did exactly what they should have done. They did everything, but the system left the town covered too thin, and I'm not even sure that we're not too thin today. I don't think we learned that lesson out of the Covenant shooting. So, again, this is not meant as a knock, but I do believe that the response time, if you go back and look at it from the time the call went out to the time the first officer arrived, the response time was not great. It certainly could have been better. And the reason it wasn't better is because we didn't have enough police officers on the ground. And I point at the administration of the city at the time, and the mayor at the time. And I even have some criticism directed in the area of the Community Oversight Board that really doesn't want a lot of police officers on the street. So, we could have done better, but we did. When they got there, they did exactly the right thing, unlike what we saw in Uvalde. There's a lot of merit, I think, in stopping from time to time and thinking back on, a situation like this and seeing where things, an after-action report, if you will, where things went wrong, where things went right, what you could have been doing better, what you might have done differently. You learn from those experiences. And I'm just going to say this one more time because I know that, you get tired of me talking about this. But I think that part of the answers that we need, and as far as if we're going to learn all the lessons of what happened at the Covenant School, is that we still need to have access to the manifesto, not because we want to glorify what this individual did, because we want to learn from it. Now, there's stuff that needs to be redacted and held back, and I get that. Some of the planning that the individual did on other potential targets. We don't need to know that. The police need to know it. We don't need to know that. But there is great value in knowing exactly what was the motivation here. This is a weird one. The Covenant shooting was a very strange shooting in that it is almost unheard of for there to be a female assailant of a mass shooting. But we also know this individual was going through some kind of therapy. And we know that this individual was going through some kind of struggle in their life and couldn't decide it had something to do with, born a girl but thought that she was a man, felt like she was more of a man, and all of that. What kind of therapy? And was it mental therapy? Was it therapy to transition? A sex change therapy? I mean, we need to know these things. We need to know what was on this mind, because that may have a real impact on what happened here. And I understand the pain that the parents will go through it, and I apologize, because I know it will be hard to reopen those wounds and visit it again. But how can you expect to really solve the problem and make it better for the next time unless you have the information? Unless law enforcement shares with the lawmakers exactly what happened there and what the background was. And quite frankly, I think there's stories out of that whole scenario that have not yet been told. And I think we in this community deserve to know the entire truth, not have it covered up. Let's know, better to have the information than to not have the information, I say. So while we look back at Uvalde and we take the lessons of that and realize that mistakes were made, let's also think about what happened at the Covenant shooting and stop and think for a moment about, have we learned all the lessons that should have come from that experience? Is there more that we can do to make sure this doesn't happen again? And do we have all the facts? Do we really have all the facts here? There'll be no trial. So we that's usually where the facts come out, but there'll be no trial in this particular case because the shooter is dead. We need to know what's in those writings. What was the motivation? We know the individual, by the way, used to go to that school. Is there something that happened in that experience that drove what happened? And if so, what was it? These are the questions that deserve to be answered. And now what we see now is just a big effort to cover it all up and to keep the information from ever coming out. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. 50 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Eurofix has a very different business philosophy. They staff all of the locations with more staff than your average auto repair shop, just so they can be ready when your emergency pops up out of nowhere. Have you ever noticed how hard it can be to get a right now appointment for vehicle repair? Some dealers, you can wait 2 weeks just to get an appointment. But not at Eurofix. Eurofix has been offering quality repairs that beat the dealer without dealer pricing since 1999. Plus, you'll get a 3-year nationwide warranty and the staff to fix your car now. So if you're tired of waiting forever to get your car into the shop, why don't you call Eurofix? Owner Aaron Stokes says, we will never be too busy for our customers. We are here to take their pain away and do it now. Eurofix repairs all European cars. And Eurofix says yes to speedy repair when others can or won't. Family owned for some 24 years, call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com and tell them your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you.
Keeping an eye on that winter weathery mix coming into Nashville. Government funding extension and Super Bowl performers have been announced. Those stories at the top of the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
That's right, 56 minutes past the hour. McMurray coming up with the news here in just a few moments. And again, we are under a winter weather advisory through the morning, and you have some really potentially dangerous situations out there with regard to the streets and the highways, and more importantly, the sidewalks, driveways, and the steps of your porch. So listen, be very, very careful out there. Respect what this ice can do. And remember to, if you have to get out there, drive really slowly and keep your distance so that you can stop in time in these very, very difficult conditions. 57 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Six o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 33 degrees in Music City, monitoring a wintry mix falling in Middle Tennessee, and that leaves possibilities open for ice and slick roads. T-Dot's Rebecca Hammonds joined WTN's The Drive this afternoon and gave an update on what their crews are seeing.
Our goal today has been to clear that snowpack that you mentioned. We know that there are some secondary state routes that we really had to tackle today to get fully passable and clear. And what we didn't want is for this whatever falls now to refreeze on top. So we feel good in most areas that those secondary routes and, of course, our primaries are definitely passable, if not clear for the most part.
And she said that they have their crews monitoring road temperatures, and they're seeing temps around 30 or higher as of a couple hours ago, which is very good news. Got a forecast latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. In the nation's capital, the House has joined the Senate in passing a short-term spending bill that extends agency funding through early March. Stephen Portnoy.
The measure staves off a partial shutdown for another 6 weeks. An immediate crisis has been averted, but by putting this stopgap spending bill on the floor, Mike Johnson has further strained his relationship with far-right conservatives. 3 months into his speakership, the situation for Johnson is especially delicate. Next week, with the resignation of an Ohio congressman, Republicans will have their smallest House majority since the early 1930s.
In Tennessee, authorities say that a man found at the bottom of a 700-foot bluff is one of the 14 Tennessee deaths blamed on winter storm weather.
Channel 4 says the 46-year-old man's body was found in Falls Creek Falls State Park after Van Buren County deputies were dispatched to a report of a lost person near the north entrance to the park. A highway patrol helicopter spotted the person's location. There were tracks in the snow leading to the bluff line overlooking Cane Creek Gorge. That's where the body was found 700 feet below. The search and recovery took place in sub-freezing temperatures. One rescuer was treated at a local hospital for mild hypothermia, but was expected to be released. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And Super Bowl performers, Super Bowl 58 will take place on February 11th in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium. The performers for the biggest game of the year have now been released. For the national anthem, it'll be Reba McEntire. Post Malone's going to sing America the Beautiful. Andra Day will perform Lift Every Voice and Sing. And for halftime, it's going to be Usher. The divisional round of the NFL playoffs takes place this week, Saturday and Sunday. That is the latest news. Weather and traffic coming up next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Good evening, everybody. It's 7 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. It's the fourth and final hour of the drive on this January 18th, a Thursday. We'll be here with you till 7 o'clock. And after the news at 7 o'clock, our leader, Mark Levin, will join us. He's here. Well, he's not here, but that's what they'll say. He's here. And then we'll talk about the nondescript bunker, the bunker in a nondescript building. And he'll carry on through the evening.
He'll call somebody a big dummy.
Yeah. You big dummy. He called me a big dummy once. He's joking around. He's kidding around. But there you go. We'll have all the Mark Levin you can handle. We got another hour here to go, though, and a lot of stuff to cover. I mean, when I go through, I don't know how people know what I do every day. My day really, even though I come on the air at 3, my day really starts at about noon. I eat a little early lunch, and then I come up to my studio and I begin 3 hours of really in-depth research to try to find out all the things that I want to talk to you about. And today, for various reasons, a lot of the stories had to do with the crisis on the border. First of all, the actual crisis, but then also in Washington right now, there's a huge standoff. I mean, it's epic as these things go. It's an epic standoff between the House of Representatives, controlled by Republicans, and everybody else over the border. And House Republicans and the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, are doing everything they can to try to force the administration to really do something to secure the border in a way that is not being done right now. And the only leverage they have is that Biden wants more money for Ukraine. Biden wants more money for Israel. Biden wants more money for Taiwan. They got to have a budget deal. And none of those things are going to move off dead center unless the House gets what it wants, which is for them to shore up the border. And so that's the number one story with regard to the border. There are many others. Here is Speaker Mike Johnson saying that, there are easy ways to fix this, Mr. President, if you would only go about it. Speaking to Laura Ingraham on Fox News.
No, I have been very clear from day one, the day I got the gavel. We need certain elements to make sure the border situation is solved. That means to restrict the flow, not based upon talking points or hyperbole or what Republicans say they want. This is coming from the experts on the ground. We went down there to talk to the people in charge of administering this, the Border Patrol agents, the sheriffs in Texas, the people who live with this crisis every single day. And they have asked us to ensure that this happens. By the way, Caitlin, by one way of example, they say that if the president himself would sign one executive order and reinstate Remain in Mexico, that policy, it could stem the flow by 70%. So I asked President Biden just the other day on the phone, I said, why would you not do that, sir? This would solve a big part of the problem. You have it within your ability to do it.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have I said he could do it like that? He could pick up the phone, make a call, and solve a lot of the problems with just a phone call. Or he doesn't want the problem solved. He's dragging it out as long as he can possibly drag it out, because this is what Democrats want. They want to fundamentally change the voting demographics of this country. Down the line, somewhere, they feel like all of these folks, there will be somebody who will give them a pathway to citizenship, and then they will reap the benefits. That's what they want. But one way or the other, it looks like if you're going to get anything that they want, they're going to have to do something about the border. All right, so that's one story that has to do with the border. The second one is that the House Homeland Security Committee on Capitol Hill, from the House side, which is chaired by our own Mark Green, Congressman of Tennessee's 7th Congressional District, it is in the process now of moving forward with an impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security. Press release just in. Today, Chairman Mark Green led all 17 Republican members of the House Committee on Homeland Security in calling for the U.S. House of Representatives to impeach Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. This was at the end of a hearing, which, by the way, Mayorkas did not attend. Quote from Green, After our nearly year-long investigation and subsequent impeachment proceedings and having exhausted all other options to hold him accountable, it is unmistakably clear to all of us and to the American people that Congress must exercise its constitutional duty and impeach Secretary Mayorkas. The Secretary has consistently, willfully, and systematically refused to follow the laws passed by Congress, abused his authority, and breached the trust of Congress and the American people on numerous occasions. The result of his failure to fulfill his oath of office has been a border crisis that is unprecedented in American history, a crisis that has cost the life of thousands of Secretary Mayorkas' fellow Americans. So they are moving forward on this. And he will be impeached. Now, the question is what happens when it gets to the Senate. But, I mean, look, there's an indication of where where people are on this thing. They did a test vote today I guess it was yesterday, on a resolution calling for the administration to do something about the border situation. I mean, this was nothing more than a test vote. Resolutions don't hold any legislative power, but it shows you where people are, right? Because, listen, a lot of Democrats are going to be squirming over this border thing. A lot of them. So they wanted to show the administration that in the House of Representatives, it's not only the Republicans that are worried about the border. It's a fair number of Democrats who are willing to cross their own party line to vote in favor of the resolution. 14 Democrats in the House. Okay? So, if there are Democrats squirming in the House, there are Democrats squirming in the Senate as well over this whole border thing. And it's entirely possible that you could have an impeachment. They might vote for impeachment. So there you have that. 14 House members who are Democrats. Texas, Colorado, Minnesota. Again, Texas, North Carolina, Maine, Texas, Ohio, Nevada, Florida, North Carolina, Alaska, Washington State, Illinois. I mean, from all over the country. There are people who understand, and these are Democrats who are probably in purple districts or sort of red districts, who find themselves, needing to be on record as being opposed to what's happening on the border because, they know that if they're going to have any chance of being reelected, they need to be on the right side of that issue. Pretty interesting, I thought, really, when you look at it. So 14 members. Will Mayorkas be impeached? Yes. Will he be convicted? I don't know. Maybe. By the way, in this hearing where Mayorkas did not show up, Green has said that there are 173 outstanding congressional inquiries. The House has asked the Homeland Security Department for 173 certain pieces of information, and they have not provided them. They are, according to Congressman Green, this is from Fox 17, Representative Mark Green, Republican, Tennessee, released a letter Thursday blasting the Biden administration for obstructing an investigation into the Department of Homeland Security. Republicans have been pushing to impeach him, blah, 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 blah. Representative Green says his committee's investigation into Mayorkas' agency has repeatedly been stonewalled, something he attributes to intentional obstruction by the Biden administration. To date, 41 requests have been made, totaling 173 outstanding request items. The House of Representatives has oversight responsibility. This is unheard of for them not to respond to a request for information. But again, they don't want to play the game. They have a political reason for doing this. Now back down to the actual border. Texas and the United States in a legal standoff as the state refuses to comply with the directive on border access. This all has to do with a park in Eagle Pass, Shelby Park in Eagle Pass, Texas. The Texas Department of Public Safety, Texas Rangers, the National Guard have secured that park, and they told the Border Patrol, you can't come in here. And the Border Patrol's going, well, I think the rank and file goes fine with me. But I think the upper echelons of the Border Patrol, they're apoplectic about it. Because I think they realize that, Texas is blocking their access in certain areas. And I admire what they're doing here. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, on Wednesday, that was yesterday, repudiated a demand from the Department of Homeland Security to provide Border Patrol officials access to the park. And he's, I think, right to do that. He says, because the facts and law side with Texas, the state will continue utilizing its constitutional authority to defend her territory, and I will continue defending those lawful efforts in court. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security should stop wasting scarce time and resources suing Texas and start enforcing the immigration laws Congress already has on the books. Paxton's response followed a cease and desist letter, which came from the Biden administration, demanding that Texas officials stop blocking Border Patrol access and remove barriers in the park. Can you imagine that standoff? I wouldn't. I have a feeling that this is the way it goes. Border Patrol agents who probably deep in their hearts completely sympathize with what's going on. Hey, we're supposed to go in here. No, you can't come in here. Well, I know we're supposed to go in here. Well, but you can't come in here because we're in control of this area. And I'm sorry, Border Patrol not allowed. Yeah, I hate that. I'll send it up the line. They don't care. I mean, they if you ask the Border Patrol agents, I mean, they understand. They're probably very sympathetic to the Texas position and don't really want to push it. But the Biden administration is going to do what they're going to do, and this fight is going to go. I hope that the state of Texas holds their ground on this, and they should. They should. Because when the government is supposed to take care of something and the government doesn't do it, then and the state decides, okay, if you're not going to do it, we're going to have to step in here and do it. I don't think that's wrong. I mean, this may go to the Supreme Court, and I hope it goes to the Supreme Court, because I think the Supreme Court will say it's wrong. You're not following the law. Biden administration, follow the law, and then they won't have to do that. And then there's this, and I'll end on this. The Biden administration accused the Texas Department of Public Safety and the state of Texas for causing the drownings of 3 people. They said, well, the state officials couldn't get to them, and we were blocked from going out there to try to save them. It's been widely knocked down as absolutely not true, but not before a whole lot of very sympathetic news organizations around the country ran it as truth. Just like, remember the whipping of the Haitians by the horseback Border Patrol people? Didn't happen. Never happened. Never once happened. But they said that it did, and it was widely reported that it happened. Didn't happen. Same thing here. The state of Texas did not prevent these drownings. There are drownings that happen down there all the time. And the reason that there are drownings is because you have a Biden administration that encourages people to try to swim across a dangerous river. That's the problem. Let's get it straight. 21 past the hour now of 6 o'clock. When it comes to big home repairs, a lot of times homeowners pretend they don't want to see the warning signs. They're afraid of what they might hear. This is really true when it comes to waterproofing and foundation repair. I mean, the truth is it could be a big problem that needs to be fixed. It could be a small problem that will become a bigger problem if you don't fix it. Or it might actually be not much to worry about at all. The problem is you don't really understand this stuff. It's not your area of expertise. You're a smart person, but, you need to bring in an expert. And for my money, that would be USS. Listen, first of all, good people, really, really nice people. And number 2, honest people. They're not out to sell you something you don't need. What they want to do is they want to help you solve your problem. So they'll come out and take a look, and they'll give you their best advice straight from the shoulder. Not going to try to upsell you. No, hard sell thing. They'll just say, here's the solution. If you want to go with us, you don't have to pay a penny until the job is done, and you're completely satisfied. And boy, there are satisfied customers. I've got all of these testimonials from people who have gone through the process, and they're just absolutely thrilled with how things have gone for them. How about Mark? So much experience made me feel really comfortable. I could tell they wanted the job to be right, not just done. This is the best crew, said Jerry, that we have ever had do work on our house. And Constance said it was an excellent experience. It put them at ease with the whole process. Listen, why don't you call them, see what they can do for you? At USS, they guarantee their best, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com. Or call this number, 615-488-7855. $25 now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. And yes, we want you to be very careful with the weather we have. We have a term for it. It's the dreaded wintry mix, because that's what we have right now, on top of what it is. Some of the areas where it's snow-packed already, you get a little water on there, then it freezes. It could be bad. We're right at the freezing mark right now. Right at the freezing mark. So anything that fell today or continues to fall by morning will glaze over that which is already there. I mean, it could be really bad.
That's not good.
Yeah, I know it's not good. Look, we still have some areas where roads are snow-packed. I mean, here in Wilson County, hardly anything's cleared, honestly. It's so bad that the Amazon people won't come up to my house. They just call you and say, we're down here at the parking lot at the grocery store. If you want to come get your stuff, come get it. Because they won't even come. Well,
Wow.
so you're putting everybody else at risk because you don't want to drive up the street. I don't know. I think they just don't want to do it. I don't think they want to trudge through the snow. That's what I think. The DHL guy showed up today. DHL walked right up to my front door and dropped it right on the front porch.
So it can be done.
It can be done. The Amazon people are just, I don't know. They're slacking. Just saying. Come on, dude. It's your job. You're a company that it says, you buy stuff from us and we'll deliver it right to your doorstep. Until they decide one day that we'll just be down at the grocery store if you want us to come pick up your stuff.
I can hear him right now mumbling to himself, I don't get paid enough for this crap.
And they down there where at the grocery store where they can get nice food and snacks and eat their lunch and wait for everybody to come pick up their packages.
Stuff.
Anyway, long story short, be careful out there. One of the things that has been a hallmark of some of this wintry weather we had across the apparently the Midwest, it was really bad. I know it was bad in Iowa, and it was bad in Chicago, which is even further north than Iowa. And everybody was reporting the same thing, the same experience with regard to EVs. They die and they don't work in the really bitter cold. And this came up today on the plane. The president was going to North Carolina for an event, and it came up. And here's what the spokeswoman for the Biden administration who was on the trip, Olivia Dalton, had to say about that.
On electric vehicles, there's been, with the extreme weather, there's been some difficulty in getting those battery charged. Do you have any thoughts on that? As you know, the administration has been really pushing for EVs to be the future of car transportation. Do you have any thoughts on the troubles with charging those batteries?
Well, as a car owner, I can promise you that whether you have a gas-powered vehicle, a hybrid-powered vehicle, and a fully electric vehicle, extreme weather temperatures impact the functioning of your car, right? So that is not unique to electric vehicles, and certainly we are always concerned about making sure that electric vehicles, we continue the progress we're making to make them affordable and reliable for every American. We saw EV sales quadruple last year. We think that's good progress, and we want to see that continue. Certainly, again, with respect to some of the reporting that we've seen this week in Chicago and elsewhere, we think these are isolated incidents, but we are looking into them and seeing where we can make an impact.
They weren't isolated incidents. The cars didn't move, and they wouldn't take a charge. Everybody was complaining about it. This is not EV sales have quadrupled. Yeah, I mean, instead of, it's still I think 96% of the cars that were sold by Ford and GM were gas-powered vehicles. Yeah, I think, am I right? 94%. 6% were EVs. So they may have quadrupled, but it's still a small number. They love to throw and twist those numbers around, and the EVs were hardly worth having. I'll tell you. Again, I think when we have moments like this, it all reminds us that we're just not ready for that transition, no matter what the Biden administration wants to do to us. Now 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7. Let me tell you about the folks over at Restoration Wellness Med Spa. It's a really cool place. Let the team over there help you achieve your weight loss goals for 2024. You see, Restoration Wellness is a leader in weight loss management in Wilson County, and you should make 2024 the year you achieve your goals. So call the Restoration Wellness team today at this number, 615-470-8124, or visit them on their website, which is restorationwellnessmedspa.com, to book a consult today. Really, honestly, that's the best way to go about it, because they have a lot of different ways they can approach this, a lot of different things and therapies that they can bring to you that can help you feel better and lose weight. My friends Carly and Jamie will take really good care of you. They'll treat you like they're one of your own. And be part of the 1,000 patients who have already seen life-changing results from the weight loss management program. Customizable treatment plans. They're not going to just have one size fits all. They're going to actually look at you and come up with a plan, a really good plan, to take advantage of the latest in these new therapies to help you lose weight and to feel better. Whether your goal is to lose stubborn body fat or improve your overall health, Restoration Wellness has a solution for you. 615-470-8124. Really, look them up and look about some of the things they'll do for you at restorationwellnessmedspa.com. It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair. We're bringing you all kinds of news and information for the next, 21 minutes and change before we hand it over to Mark Levin a little bit later. Now, we're going to do some 2024 update. Well, should we play the music? Why not? Let's go ahead. And it's the 2024 update because it's, there's so much political news going on, we just can't get it all in one show almost. Do it twice. Here's one that you talk about voter integrity. Sometimes it's done right out in the open, the stealing of votes. But at least this one looks like it's going to be shut down. It's up in Wisconsin. Listen to this. And this is from thefederalist.com. In 2021, the city of Racine, Wisconsin, purchased a mobile election unit, tapping into more than 200,000 of the nearly $1.7 million that the Democrats received in Zuck bucks. This is money that Mark Zuckerberg gave to Democrats in advance of the election. Now, they have nearly 80,000 residents located on the shores of Lake Michigan, and they used this voting booth on wheels. That's right. They set up a mobile voting booth on wheels to reach as many voters as possible. Well, we have to do this so that we can reach to people who have a difficult time voting. But as one election integrity watchdog put it, the mobile voting van, the only one of its kind in the Badger State, isn't about access. It's all about turnout, specifically turning out Democrat voters. Last week, a Racine County Circuit judge agreed with that assessment. In his ruling, Judge Eugene Gusarkowitz declared that nothing in state law allowed for the use of the voting van, and further found that its use at multiple particular sites around the city gave Democrats a partisan advantage. They put it in areas where they knew only Democrats would show up. No defendant or intervener can point to any statute authorizing the use of a mobile van absentee ballot sites. Instead, the defendants argue no statute expressly prohibits them. The judge concluded in his ruling, the absence of an express prohibition, however, does not mean mobile absentee ballot sites comport to procedures specified in state election laws. Who was driving the van? The interveners in the Wisconsin case included partisans such as the Democrat National Committee, Black Leaders Organizing for Communities, a group known as BLOC. The latter promotes far-left policies in the Milwaukee area as a project of the Tides advocacy and advocacy arm of the left-leaning Tides Foundation. And as Influence Watch notes, BLOC was formed in response to President Donald's narrow victory in Wisconsin during the 2016 presidential election, a result that many on the left blamed on low turnout among African-American voters in Milwaukee. It came from Zuckerberg. Under the cover of COVID emergency, Zuckerberg pumped a combined $400 million into the Center for Tech and Civic Life and the Center for Election Innovation. So there you have all that. Okay. Again, they can steal votes right under your nose. Now, there are other places that tried this. So this will not be the only lawsuit. The ruling here indicates that maybe some of these other stupid ideas will be knocked back as well. And again, when people say, well, they're going to cheat. Well, yeah, they're going to try to cheat. The Democrats are. They're going to try. They do. And a lot of times it's under the radar, and a lot of times it's right out in front of you. But what they're going to do is we are working. Our side is working very meticulously to try to stay ahead of them. And, the problem is that you figure out what they did last time and you work on that. Then they come up with a whole bunch of different other things. COVID-19, the stupid thing we did with COVID-19 by, making it so easy for people to vote absentee, and that really was the thing. And it's impossible to track down. It's absolutely impossible to track down. But it doesn't mean when they say, well, you have no proof. Well, it's because of the way the system was set up. It's really hard to prove. It's really hard to prove. Once you separate the voting ballot from the envelope, you can't ever put it back together. You don't know. You can't go back and do any kind of forensic analysis. What about Donald Trump? Who will he pick as his running mate? Here is DJ TJ, it's Donald J. Trump Jr., on that. He talked to the folks over at Newsmax. A lot of names got thrown around.
Could you see your father running with Ron DeSantis? I asked him that question over the summer, and he didn't rule it out. Could you see Ron DeSantis?
How do you? It's hard. People do that. Like, I would do whatever I could to make sure it wasn't Nikki Haley. But but like a Ron DeSantis, could I see? You're never going to rule out someone that is, a leading contender. It doesn't mean that's who you go with. I could see other people that would be great. I'd love to see, a J.D. Vance. I'd love to see a Tucker Carlson. I'd love to see, people who are just principally, in alignment as well as like aggressive. You actually need a fighter. The Republicans in Washington, D.C. are weak. You can have the House, the Senate, and they'll still roll over. It doesn't
Don,
matter.
is your dad serious about Tucker Carlson? Are those rumors serious?
I would imagine, listen, that's clearly, it would be on the table, right? I mean, they're very friendly. I think they agree on virtually all of these things. They certainly agree on stopping the never-ending wars. And so, I would love to see that happen. And, that would certainly be a contender.
Ben Carson, those rumors legit?
Ben's great. I mean, what a great American, someone who was just steadfast and loyal throughout all of the insanity of the last years. I'd love to see that. And, Ben's almost too nice for politics. That may be the only problem. Can you withstand the insanity that's in there? But I'd love to see a Ben Carson in there.
That might be a good thing. But no way Nikki Haley.
Oh, well, that's my opinion. I don't make these decisions, but I don't think that's currently really on the table.
But your father listens to you. Your father listens to you, his family, maybe more than anyone else. That opinion matters.
I've been pretty involved in the political game for quite some time, and I think, more importantly, I actually, let's say live with the base. I hang out with the base. Those are my people. Those are my friends. I'm not, the New York City rubber chicken dinner, like charity circuit guy. Like, I hunt and fish and travel with real Americans, and I think I have a pretty good understanding of where they're at.
Well, there you go. I mean, maybe I need to reconsider that whole Tucker Carlson thing because he didn't throw it out. He didn't discount it. I wonder how much he really knows. The president said at one point he had a pretty good idea who it was going to be, but he hasn't decided to name that person. So what are the likelihood of the way this thing goes forward? Look, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. There is a very strong, it's almost to a certainty now that Donald Trump will become the nominee. Now, is that to say that no one has a pathway here? I don't see a pathway for Ron DeSantis at all. He's actually talking as if as like someone who sort of knows that it's over. He says he's gonna try to make a last stand in South Carolina. He's all but pulled out of New Hampshire, where he wasn't getting any traction anyway. And he says, "Look, I've spent a lot of time on the ground in Iowa." And it's good when you meet people and convert them, but there are just so many votes out there, and you've got to do. And I came in not really doing much media. I should have been blanketing. I should have gone on all the big shows. I should have gone on everything. We had an opportunity, I think, to come out of the gate and do that and reach a much broader group of people. And now I'm everywhere. I mean, I'll show up anywhere. But I mean, what he's saying is that we didn't do a lot of media interviews. He really disdains the media generally. And he decided not to do those shows. And he said that was a mistake. When you're looking back and you say, this was a mistake and I could have done this differently, I don't know, does that sound like a guy who's about ready to hang it up? I mean, he's not going to win in New Hampshire, and he's not probably going to win in South Carolina. So I don't know. Now, as for Nikki Haley, I don't want anybody to get mad at me. I'm just giving you my best assessment here. This is not an endorsement. I'm just saying, is there a pathway forward for Nikki Haley? Maybe. All the stars would have to align perfectly in New Hampshire, and then she would have to springboard out of New Hampshire and get a victory in her home state of South Carolina. Now, so where are we on that? I mean, some polls show Nikki Haley a lot closer than others, but the Real Clear Politics average has in New Hampshire, Trump 46, Haley 33, DeSantis 6, but they also don't take into account the fact that Chris Christie is out and Ramaswamy is out. How does that change the numbers? I mean, Chris Christie was pulling about 12% in New Hampshire. If that all went to Haley, then it would be a much tighter race. Okay? But then you get to South Carolina. Even if she pulls off a win in New Hampshire, which is, right now Trump leads by 14 in the average. It's probably a little tighter than that, but Trump probably still going to be very hard to beat in New Hampshire. In South Carolina, Trump is 30 points ahead of Nikki Haley. But again, it comes down Trump 52, Haley 21, DeSantis 8. So it would have to be a thing for Nikki Haley where she She gets a little traction in New Hampshire. If she pulls off a win there and springboards back to South Carolina, she could make the case, look, it's a two-person race. Trump won Iowa. I won New Hampshire. Let's finish it. Let's decide what's going to happen here in South Carolina. If she doesn't do well in New Hampshire and Trump stomps her and stomps DeSantis, going to South Carolina will be her last stand, but it would probably not end up going very well for her. Look, I'd like to give you all of the scenarios. The most likely scenario is that Trump is well on his way to becoming the nominee, and we'll know exactly where we are by the time we get to South Carolina. Because the only thing that could stop Trump now would be a really big turnout in New Hampshire by Nikki Haley. And even if she got that, you look at all the other states, Trump could probably prevail in most of the other states. It's not likely to significantly change that. But there at least is, just a sliver of an opportunity for Nikki Haley still left. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.